I don't like being portrayed as an idiot.
Good morning, I'm Mike Graham, he's Mike Parry, you're listening to the Two Mikes on Talk Sport. Here we go again, the FA has a chance to make Gareth Southgate the next England manager, but they're going to wait until the end of November so they can have another look around. Apparently he's suggested it. Is there anyone out there who actually is running that organisation with any sense? Meanwhile, over in Wales, Porky thinks the honeymoon may be over just because they got a 1-1 draw with Serbia. Could he be right? We'll be asking Barry Horn. 08717 22 3344. There's a big Irish theme coming up for this show today as well. Lots of success for the Irish in rugby, in football, and even in UFC as well. Coming up, we'll also have heroes and villains. Because it's a Sunday, there's a Porky Sermon as well for anyone needing spiritual guidance. You're listening to the Two Mikes with me, Mike Graham, and Mike Parry on Talk Sport. This is Talk Sport. We are the Two Mikes, and I'm delighted to say it's time to say a very, very good afternoon to Mr. Mike, a Porky, a Parry. Very good afternoon to you, Mr. Parry.
Yeah, very good afternoon, Mike. And all those issues that you've just detailed, they're very important indeed. We'll get to them over the next 3 hours. But first issue we need to get to.
What is it?
Jellyfish.
Jellyfish, yes.
How do you eat jellyfish on toast?
Well, it wasn't on toast. I was in a Japanese restaurant last night because it was my daughter's birthday. Well,
we are Japanese, if you please.
Thank you very much.
That's from the Mikado, by the way.
It was from the Mikado, very much.
Yes.
Gilbert and Sullivan.
Yes, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's actually, she's one of these people that has a sort of week-long birthday celebration. So this is her second birthday dinner, actually.
Right.
And she wanted to go to Japanese. And I haven't really had Japanese food very much. I'm not a big fan of sushi, as I'm sure
No, I'm
you're
not either, no.
But I was sitting in this
place. The one I really hate is wasabi.
Wasabi.
And when some
You don't like people eating on trains, do you?
When some ignorant individual gets a bag of wasabi as big as, a shopping bag full of cans of Bonio, gets on the train.
It's got a sort of pungent smell to it.
It's revolting, it's disgusting, and if it ever happens again, I will throw the individual off at the next
Would you not
available
just remove
station.
the offending wasabi nuts?
You can't. You can't.
You go the whole bag and chuck them.
Well, yeah, maybe, but you go the whole way down the carriage, and all you can hear is, all you can smell is wasabi. It's horrible.
Yeah, right. Well, anyway, I like to be a bit adventurous when it comes to food, and I saw jellyfish on the menu, and so I said to Emma's fiancé, I said, "Do you fancy we get some jellyfish?" And he was frightened. He said, "No, I don't think I want to eat it." He was scared.
Well, I'm not. I don't blame him.
And he said,
jellyfish actually are so dangerous they can kill you.
Are they?
Yeah, they sting you.
Well, when they're alive,
enough.
But not when you eat them.
Portuguese men of war. Yeah, but hang on. We all know that in some cases you kill the rodent or you kill the snake or but the poison remains there.
Yeah, well, I wasn't sure about that, but I presumed it wasn't a Portuguese man of war. It didn't say. Anyway, they brought the jellyfish and it was delicious. I'd actually have it again. They brought it in quite a small dish. I actually put a picture out on Twitter. Yeah. And it's kind of soaked in vinegar. It's cold.
What's it taste like?
You eat the tentacles, basically, and
you can taste. But they're the bits that have got the sting in.
Yeah, but I was eating them with chopsticks, and it tastes literally like sort of jelly, really. But it had. But then I said to the guy, "How do you get this? How do you get from the jellyfish in the sea to here?"
Yes.
And apparently they bring it. They import it, sort of freeze dried, basically.
Yeah, where from?
From somewhere in the Far East.
How do they capture it?
I don't know. I didn't ask them.
In nets, I suppose.
I suppose so.
Yeah, it doesn't look
so
good
anyway,
to me.
It was very nice. I mean, I think you'd like it. It was quite sort of.
No, I wouldn't like it. I can't stand exotic foods like that. I just wouldn't bother even trying it.
Yeah, no, it was good. It was very good. I felt quite brave eating it, but it was quite a strange sensation feeling the little nubs of the tentacles as you were eating them.
Not for me, thank you.
Very nice. But a very nice restaurant and a great and lots of really good Japanese food, which I never thought I would like, but I actually did. It was very good.
Yeah, good.
Highly recommended.
Right, okay.
Thank you for asking.
Yeah, no problem at all. So while all that was going on, of course, England was smashing the old Springboks. That was great, wasn't it?
They certainly were.
But
first time in 10 years.
Yeah, I do like Eddie Jones because, of course, we're going to be talking about Gareth Southgate's powers of leadership during the course of this show.
And Eddie Jones has already said it's still not enough.
Well, brilliant. He said, very pleasing result, and that kind of stuff, Yeah, it's good to beat the Springboks. But he said they can improve, and he wasn't happy that they conceded a late try and all that kind of stuff,
Absolutely.
I mean, what an incredible record. Played 11, won 11. So the only two teams now that we need to get the measure of are the All Blacks and the Aussies.
And the All Blacks have shown that they can be beaten, because Ireland beat them the other weekend, didn't they?
Of course they have.
So, I mean, I think he's brilliant. And he does it in such a quiet, sort of unassuming way.
Yeah.
You don't hear about him very much. You don't see him making a big song and dance about anything. If there is any issues within the camp, he deals with them. We don't hear about them. I mean, he's fantastic.
Well, we're going to talk to old Steve Stammers, who is a legendary Fleet Street hack, about the future of Gareth Southgate soon, because you seem to think now the FA should jump in.
Well, I don't see why they can't.
You're being unhelpful to the FA again, calling them ditherers and all that.
Well, they are ditherers, aren't
they? But they can't win either way. If they jumped in with 2 feet now and said, right, it's Gareth Southgate, then you get all the other people saying, oh, the process isn't over yet. Got to play Spain.
The process should be over.
That.
I mean, they said they were going to give him 4 games, right? And they were going to make him temporary manager for 4 games. Those 4 games have now happened. So why can't they just give him the job, or not give him the job, but not say, oh, why don't we just wait until the end of the month because we'd like to interview some more people?
Gareth Southgate worries me a little bit because I think he's so politically correct.
He is.
Pep Southgate. He strokes his beard, looking incredibly earnest and furrowed brow and the deep thinking look. Look at me. I'm thinking about everything.
And he hasn't had a hard game yet.
He hasn't had a hard game yet. And now to say, well, of course, I think the FA should interview some younger coaches. That's the process, and I'd be a hypocrite not to endorse that policy. That's all very well saying it now, but he knows he's got the job. He knows he's got the job because on the back page of every Fleet Street newspaper this morning, either the chief soccer writer is endorsing him, as you should if you've got a career prospect in football journalism over the next 2 or 3 years, or we're getting exclusive insider says Gareth Southgate's got the job, so he knows he's got the job. Right. So frankly,
who exactly are they going to be interviewing between now and the end of November? Who?
Well, I don't know. He says young coaches. I mean, does Eddie Howe come into the remit? Because if they interviewed Eddie Howe and Eddie Howe said he wanted the job, they should give it to Eddie Howe.
But he's already said he doesn't want the job. Because he says it's too soon, doesn't he?
But I mean, Gareth Southgate just a few months ago said, I don't want the job. Men can be talked into doing the England job. Anybody will tell you, including Sam Allardyce, including Harry Redknapp, whose whole lives were positioned towards the pinnacle of getting the England job. Right. And in one case...
Sam Allardyce didn't have it for very long,
exactly.
Though, did he?
In one case, Allardyce did, but lost it very quickly. Harry was never given the job, and he should have been given the job, in my view. But anybody will tell you can be easily talked into the England job. And in fact, Eddie Howe has a stronger track record in Premier League management than Gareth Southgate.
He certainly does, but he's never been part of the England setup, and it seems to me it would be bonkers.
So what?
Well, it seems like
a group of players that he manages. They're all Premier League players.
I know that,
and he works with Premier League players every day.
No, sure, but Gareth Southgate has been in with the furniture. I mean, he's not a very exciting man. He's not a very exciting manager. He's not a particularly great manager, and he hasn't got any track record. But I don't see the point of giving somebody a job for 4 or 5 games and then changing it again.
I just think it's the very worst reason to give it to Gareth Southgate. Oh, well, he's an insider at the FA.
No, I agree.
Very worst reason.
I agree. And the second worst reason is the fact that he's now just been doing it temporarily. Exactly. But the fact is there isn't anybody else out there. There just isn't. I don't know who they're going to talk to.
That's right.
I wish somebody would give me a clue.
Oh, Nigel Farage has stolen the lead, hasn't he?
Well,
incredible.
Do you know what? I told Alistair Campbell was tweeting yesterday saying that that there was some huge diplomatic problem now created because the first person that Donald Trump should have spoken to was Theresa May. Yeah. And of course he spoke to her on the phone. But he said what's he doing meeting Nigel Farage, who's actually only the acting leader now of UKIP. That's right. Before he meets the Prime Minister.
Well, Farage went over, spotted that he thought Trump would be President of the United States and decided to jump aboard. Actually, I've read an inside story this morning that he was in another part of America. I think he was in Idaho. And he was at some...
Who Trump was, or Farage was?
No, Farage was. Farage was on a tour in America, or a trip in America. And he literally bumped into a load of Trump supporters who were all having a fantastic late-night drink, in a hotel. Right. And when one of them recognised him and said, "Oh, you're that Nigel Farage, aren't you? Weren't you the Brexit guy?" And he said, we're hoping to do what you did. This was before the election. Oh, yeah. And he found himself alongside Donald Trump about 3 days later at another rally.
Well, I mean, he did go over before, didn't he, and meet him and speak at one of his rallies. But also, he was on the James Wales show the other day on Talk Radio, where he was being rather dismissive of Trump, I thought. I mean, in the sense that he was being a bit sort of disrespectful. He was saying, he was suggesting that he could be, his responsible adult when he came to Britain, which is a term you normally only use for somebody who's not fit to stand trial. Sure.
Lord Rennick, my old friend, Sir Robin Rennick, as he was.
Oh, this is the guy that he used to feed secrets to.
Yes, that's right. Yes, he was the British ambassador in Washington.
I love the way you just acknowledge that as if it's perfectly normal.
You say feed secrets. I say aid the national cause.
You're supposed to have journalistic ethics when you
aid
work
the national
as a
cause.
journalist.
But it's very interesting because in my political journals over the weekend, I have read that the reason Theresa May was 10th in the list for world leaders to be rung, and by the way, it wasn't in terms of importance, because if you look at some of the leaders that were rung before Mrs May, and we're the 5th biggest economy in the world, some of them were actually small African or small Middle East countries where Trump had obligingly, responded to something they'd done during the course of his campaign. Right. So it wasn't like you're more important than Britain or something.
He was kind of returning their calls, as it were.
Exactly. Yeah. But that's
a good explanation, but I'm not sure I buy it.
Well, I think it is the explanation, because what's amazing is that our British ambassador in Washington, whose job is to literally have his finger on the pulse and his ear to the ground, learning what's happening in America, had built incredible bridges with Hillary Clinton and the Hillary camp and all her people, and invited round for dinners at the embassy and all that kind of stuff, but had never built a single bridge with Trump. Right.
Well, that doesn't surprise me, because nobody thought he was going to win.
Exactly. But as he is our representative in Britain, and for most of his time there was representing David Cameron, what an appalling error, if that's
well, it
true.
does sound like a terrible error, doesn't it? And also, Washington, D.C. is going to be turned into a sort of sea of piranhas, because all the people that Trump is going to hire to run the administration, they're all going to be these hotshot corporate lawyers from New York.
Well, are they?
Yeah. So, I mean, forget the political sort of jiggery-pokery and skullduggery. Now it's going to be just, you've met some of those New York sort of
absolutely.
Sharks from the pool, so it's going to be fascinating stuff.
People are strange when you're a stranger. Faces look ugly when you're alone. Women seem wicked when you're unwanted. Streets are uneven when you're down, when you're strange.
This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics. There will be, of course, a podcast coming out. We've got Heroes and Villains coming up in a little while. Barry Horn is here, a former Wales and Everton midfielder, to tell us what he makes of Porky's assertion, basically, that has the bubble burst.
No,
for
it's
Wales.
not an assertion, it's a question.
It's a question.
I'm not asserting the Wales bubble has burst.
Right.
Chris Coleman, I think, is a great international manager who's had a brilliant track record. I'm just wondering what's happening with 1 victory and 3 draws in a group where they may have done better.
Well, just before we speak to Barry, Derek in Pencoed has been in touch. He says, Mike, so Porky thinks the Welsh bubble has burst, so we didn't win last night, we didn't lose either. We can still qualify. Okay. It is much more difficult to qualify for this World Cup than it is for the Euros.
Oh, it certainly is. But I mean, when we start taking pronouncements on football from bog cleaners, which is basically
I think
what
you've been
Derek
very harsh.
in Pencoed is. But
very
Derek,
harsh.
Thank you very much for getting in touch. Like all our correspondents,
thank you
not
very
your
much.
fault that you run a latrine cleaning company.
Well, he cleans all sorts of things, by the way. It's not
true.
just bogs. Anyway, let's talk to Barry Horn. Barry, very good afternoon to you. Doesn't sound like you've got a great line there, Barry. Can you hear us all right? No?
Oh, that's exactly.
Doesn't sound like a great start.
Back.
I think Derek in Pencoed has skewed the pitch in some way.
Well, I think the signal must have gone there somewhere over the Cumbrian mountains.
Somewhere, Gwyn has tweeted at the two mics. He says, I take it Porky is still working on Eddie Jones. And he goes, #Bobcat Bob.
Oh, yeah, Bobcat Bob.
I think he means you haven't quite perfected Eddie Jones.
I love the way that Eddie hisses. I'm going to call him Whispering Eddie or Hissing Eddie. Yeah. Hissing Ed, because he kind of pushes his words out through his teeth. Yeah. And it's a great result in terms of the points, but we've got a lot more.
I don't think that's bad at all.
We've got a lot more work to do. Yeah, okay.
I'll
keep working on that one.
Let's see if Barry's there. Barry, are you there?
Yes, I was always here.
Oh,
Hi,
that's
Barry.
good. Well, sorry about that.
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting you weren't always there, but we couldn't hear you. Yeah. Mr. Parry's asking the question whether the bubble has somewhat burst for Chris Coleman and Wales.
Well, do you know? I'd like to qualify that, Barry, because I'm a huge admirer of Chris Coleman. I think he's a fantastic leader of men, and his passion that he shows in his actions and his face is great. Is the actual effort that he's put into elevating a group of reasonably average players to great achievements, including the semi-final in the Euros, is he starting to feel the pace a bit?
Well, I don't think it's about Chris Coleman feeling the pace, or I don't think it's about bubbles being burst. I think this is just a really, really difficult group to get out of. Right. And each of the games, I mean, last night was a classic case in point, really. It's such a tight game. Yeah. And within, I think it was 51 seconds between Gareth Bale hitting the post to make it 2-0. And Wales is switching off and conceding to make it 1-0.
Indeed.
And that's the nature of football at the very highest level. I mean, it was, it wasn't a classic encounter last night, but it was such a tense affair. It was so close, and they've fallen the wrong side of the line on 3 occasions now. A goal against Georgia, or not conceding, a goal last night, or not conceding. Yeah. And everybody would be saying, Wales are doing brilliantly. They're carrying on their form from the Euros. it's just that tight, and that's the nature of football. It's a low-scoring game.
But the thing is now, of course, Barry, because you're only really guaranteed a place in Russia if you actually would top the league. And with Ireland doing so well at the moment, it's going to be a struggle now, isn't it?
Yes. Listen, I'm after following Wales since I retired and covering them since I retired. I think it's 6, 7 campaigns. I'm well versed in talking at Wales' chances. And I'm not quite sure we're at the point yet where we are talking. About talking about the chances. They go to Dublin in March and win, and that puts them one point behind Ireland. I know that's difficult. I know that's because Ireland are doing really, really well at the moment. But that's not impossible. It's not impossible for Wales to go to Ireland and sneak a win, and all of a sudden the group looks completely different. But yes, Mike.
But also
agree, it's really, really, really difficult. Now. We needed to. Really, the Georgia result was a bad one. The draw in Austria was I didn't think at the time was a bad point. Dropping 2 points against Georgia was massive. And then last night 1-0 up with less than 10 minutes to go. You've got to see the game out.
Exactly, and Serbia haven't lost a game yet either. So I mean, it could well be that they'll have 11 points after the next round of games as well. In which case, Wales will still be third, even if they win in Ireland.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And when the draw was made, I thought that was always going to be the case. There's 4 teams in there who, before the ball was kicked, would argue that they were as good as anybody else in the team and would all be looking to top the group. And then Georgia are no mugs either. So it's a really, really difficult group. With the hope now for Wales, of course, is that people start taking points off each other, and Wales just go on a little bit of a run.
That's right. Now, this might be a heretical question, Barry. You're, of course, a teacher as well as a footballer. Did Chris Coleman have the opportunity to make himself a really tasty product at the end of the last Euro campaign? And is he in danger of blowing that reputation, which was sky high then, if this campaign doesn't go right for him?
Well, Chris would have known that was exactly the case. I mean, so in life, not just football, sometimes you need to... It's all about timing, isn't it? You need to make the move when the time is right. But I think Chris felt that the players he had at his disposal were good enough to take him to the World Cup finals, and then his stock would have been even higher. I mean, it would have been incredible, because let's face it, qualifying for the World Cup finals is much, much more difficult than qualifying for France in the summer. And that what the achievement that would have been, and I think Chris probably weighed it up and thought, no, he's loving the job, he's loving managing the group of players that he's got, and he obviously felt he could take them and himself onto a different level.
Yeah, but I mean, as Mike says, it's an incredible thing that he did, and I don't think he'll necessarily tarnish his reputation as such. He's already been recognised as and having been shortlisted for the Coach of the Year and the Ballon d'Ors and all that, hasn't he? But I mean, do you think he'll stay with Wales, Barry? Because a lot of people thought after the Euros that he might be somebody that would be poached by a Premier League club or maybe even a club in Europe.
I don't think he will necessarily stay with Wales beyond the World Cup finals, whatever happens. But I'd be very, very surprised if he left before then.
Oh no, he won't leave. I'm sure he won't leave. It's a mission for him, this. And when you've got a player like Gareth Bale in your squad, he ain't going to go to Real Madrid with the greatest of respect, is he? And manage Gareth there. So I think he just loves the sheer joy of working with players of the quality of Gareth Bale on a daily basis. Yeah,
and I think Chris would take a little bit of umbrage that I take your point about...
Well, he's not going to go straight to Real Madrid.
I take your point about the opportunity of managing Bale and Ramsey.
Yes.
So I think Chris would say immediately, and quite rightly so, that the whole group, he loves the whole group.
Oh, indeed.
And the ethos and the attitude that he's got. And Chris has got a lot to do with that, of course. He's created that.
That's right. Now, just to move on here, Barry, it's a very serious issue, this, right? I'm a bit fed up that Roy Keane has picked on Everton players and saying that, sometimes they're always trying to wriggle out of international representation and they arrive in the dressing room on crutches and all that. I believe he said that about Everton players, Barry, because you were in that 95 FA Cup final winning team when Everton beat Manchester United, and Roy Keane was in the team that day, and we walloped them, and he's never got over it, has he?
Well, I don't think losing the FA Cup final to Everton has scarred Roy mentally to that extent.
Oh, I think it has.
I think there's several things have scarred Roy mentally over the years. I mean, he's quite a troubled guy, isn't he, at times?
Yes, well, maybe he's carrying a bit of baggage, but I'm not sure. I don't think he carries any particular loathing of Everton, to be honest with you. I think it's just
everybody.
Just the situation of everybody. Yeah,
yeah.
But no, I mean Ronald Koeman had a few choice words as well, didn't he? So
well, he certainly did. What do you think?
Koeman has said that internationals are bad for the players, isn't he?
Exactly, and he has actually made it absolutely clear when it comes to club versus country, he's very much in favour of club, isn't he? And that must be a dilemma you as a Welsh international might have had during your career.
No. We were. It was both. I mean, I hated missing games for Everton. I hated missing games for Wales. But when international weeks came around, the Welsh lads would turn up. They would turn up and try to play with broken legs. They were that desperate to play. Right. But equally, Everton meant the world to me as well. And there was never a conflict. It was whatever the next game was, you wanted to play it.
Yeah, right. Right. Okay, great. Well, Barry, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you, Barry.
Always great to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. And keep up the good work at the King's School Chester, my alma mater.
Yeah, I must admit, actually, Barry, if you're still there, Mr. Parry does go on about the King's School Chester quite a lot as one of the top schools in Britain, which I'm sure it indeed is. Is there a plaque to him there or anything?
No, well, he's got a picture on the famous wall. Actually, yeah, he is on the famous wall. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Did he supply that picture?
No.
No, I don't believe he did, because if he did, he would have provided a better one, I guess.
Oh, that's very nice, isn't it? Yeah,
very good.
Very
well,
nice.
Barry, thank you very much
indeed.
Well, there we are. So if anybody wants to visit the famous wall at the King's School Chester, that's what they can do. Absolutely. Andy says this: all of a sudden, Wales's group is difficult to get out of, and here's me thinking they were a brilliant team. I think he's being sarcastic. # 2 good players.
Well, no, that's not true. If they only had 2 good players, they wouldn't have got to the semi-finals of the Euros. So I'm afraid the evidence knocks that one down.
Yeah, exactly right. And Stephen says he's splitting hairs a little bit, but a Portuguese man of war isn't a jellyfish. It is a siphonophore, a collection of organisms. Did you know that?
No.
He says he's splitting hairs.
Exactly. To most people in the world, the Portuguese man of war is the most deadly jellyfish.
Yes, I suppose so.
You can take your old jellyfish tentacles and stuff them in your pipe towel.
And here's one from Neil, who says, Roy Keane's an absolute legend at Forest, never sent off, managed by the best manager of all time, and well-behaved at least. Well, he was, but he's not so well-behaved now that he's saying at Nottingham Forest. I presume that means he wasn't sent off there.
No, he
was sent off in his career.
I'm sure Brian Clough had to go and rescue him from the odd late-night situation or two. I'm pretty sure about that.
Very possibly.
I may be wrong.
So.
If I'm wrong, Roy, I apologise, but I believe that may have been the case.
Indeed.
Where is my mind? Where is my mind? Where is my mind? Way out in the water.
This is Talk Sport. We are the 2 mics. We are here until 4 o'clock. There's lots going on. Rahul says, please can you do a mimicry, I'm not sure if that's the word he means, of Martin O'Neill, Mr. Parry.
I'm telling you.
Isn't that Brendan Rodgers?
It probably is, yeah. My players were magnificent.
Now, there's one story that I thought would pique your interest that I saw a little bit earlier on in the day, and that is that the jury service is now going to be open to people up to the age of 75.
Yes.
Which means that there is no escape, not only for you,
yes.
But for lots and lots of people. Is yours not coming up very shortly?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow
I have to report to the Crown Court for jury service. 10 a.m.
Right.
And
did they give you a set of instructions? What do you have to bring with you or anything like that?
No, nothing at all. In fact, the only reason we're talking about it is there's no instructions that you must not discuss this with anybody. You can't talk about it. You can't announce it.
Right.
I suppose it's public justice, isn't it? So,
I think the thing you can't talk about is the case itself.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't even know what case I'm going to be on,
Once you get given a case, I think that's the thing you can't talk about.
Yeah, well, maybe. But anyway, I tried to point out to the judges that I have, immense communicative responsibility working at Talk Sport, where we have millions of listeners, and that I will be working during the course of the whatever trial I'm assigned to, because I'll be working at night as the bosses here at Talk Sport have kindly decided that's what we can do the next week or maybe the week after, depending on how long I'm doing it. But
well, that's the other problem, isn't it? You don't know how long you're going to be there.
No idea.
It's open-ended.
And I then had to write a note to the resident judge at the Crown Court that I'm going to, okay?
Right.
And then I got a reply with the strangest word in it that I've ever seen.
Really?
You cannot recuse.
Recuse?
Yeah.
How do you spell that?
R-E-C-U-S-E.
Recuse? Yeah, I've never heard that word.
And I thought they've spelt that wrong. They must have been refused. But recuse means not doing your national duty.
Right.
Which I'd never...
Is that normally something they would use about military service?
Well, I don't know.
Like
I've no idea. But it was used twice in the letter that was sent to me. I think it was recuse, actually.
Right.
I haven't got the letter with me here, but I had to look it up.
But isn't it weird that you've gone through your entire life? I mean,
Yes.
I don't think you've ever been called up for jury
No.
service before.
No.
And I would, without wishing to jinx it, I don't think I have either.
No.
I was once called up for jury service in America, but
Right.
because I wasn't actually a citizen, I told them
exactly.
I couldn't do it.
That's right,
And that
yeah.
was fine.
Yeah.
But it's amazing that they've now decided to... I mean, it's almost like they've targeted you.
I just don't understand it. You know, the Crown... I mean... Most of the time, if you and I go into a public place,
Yeah.
somebody says, "Hi guys,
Yeah.
can I have a picture taken with you?" or something like that. What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do if somebody starts tweeting out they've seen me at the Crown Court tomorrow? What was I
Well,
doing
as I
there?
said to you the other night, I think you should just let them do the picture and put it out. And then, you know, maybe that will excuse you by default.
Well, I can't say to somebody, no. I can't say to somebody, no, you can't. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. You know, I mean, if they hate the picture, I'm not looking. There's nothing I can do about
Well, it's
it.
hardly a
They put it
secret
out.
that you're going to be cried in Crown Court because
Well,
you've been telling people
exactly.
that's where you're going to be.
Exactly. And you know, if there's a sign courts above me as I'm coming out, somebody takes a picture, then they'll put out a caption, say, "Hey, they've got Porky at last, give him 10 years," or something like that. You know what I mean? Because they will...
What sort of cases do you think you're likely to
I've no idea.
presented with?
No idea. You just don't know. You know, I've no idea.
I mean, you won't get anything mega serious like murder.
Well,
like that,
how
will
do
you?
I know? I mean, you just...
Well, got
you
the Crown Court. I mean, Crown Court doesn't do that sort of stuff, does it? I mean,
does.
that would be the Old Bailey, wouldn't it?
No. Plenty of Crown Courts try murder cases. So, you know, I can't remember any murders happening lately in the sort of the Surrey area, which, you know, might be a Yorkshire Ripper type case, as far as I know.
No, I don't think you're going to get anything that glamorous.
But anyway, look, I'll tell you what's happening. I think this is a bit weird as well. They put the age up to 75.
Yeah.
It's from December the 1st this year. It's the first change since 1988 when the age rose from 65 to 70. The younger limit for jurors stays at 18. So that means in the same jury room you could have a 19-year-old with his view of life and a 74-year-old with his view of life or her view of life.
That's why you have the collection of people, though, isn't it?
Yeah. And
jury of your peers, literally.
Yeah, I just can't believe that we're that short of people to do jury service, that you've got to extend it to 75. When, by the way, you know, without being unkind to anybody, the first signs of, you know, mental fragility can often happen before you're diagnosed with it.
That's true.
But
that can happen at any age, really.
It can happen at any age, but it's more likely to happen when you're older.
That's true.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the other thing is that, I mean, I was wondering about this when this first came up. I mean, there must be loads of people who are exempt from jury duty. For example, I would think somebody who is perhaps a young mother or a single mother who look after children. I mean, anyone who's looking after children can't presumably be called for jury duty because then they can't look after them.
They're not very sympathetic. I put all the positions to them. I didn't want to cause any hassle. I didn't want to draw attention to the case.
Yeah.
You know, if somebody involved in the court case rings in to talk sport and cons his way onto air, pretend to be somebody else, and then shout something out about the case, I'm sorry, we've already written to them as a company.
Indemnified yourself,
yes, we
perhaps.
have. We've written to the company, said there's no way in the world we can stop that happening. It's impossible to guarantee that will not happen.
But didn't the guy seem to be quite an expert in radio production because did he not suggest to you that he might be able to prevent it by having a dump button?
Or a delay or something like that. And I said, I'm telling you, man, people have lost their jobs in the past because a producer can be distracted, he can be on the phone, somebody might have just rung him, and it just happens. But anyway, they seem to think it's going to be okay. And by the way, this guy said to me, "Oh, we have lots of famous people who are jurors."
Really?
And I said, "I'm not claiming to be famous." I said, "What I'm claiming to be is a person who has immediate access to millions of people in a communicative fashion, and therefore they have communication powers with me."
And they can't stop you from working, can
No,
they?
of course they can't, because if I was a taxi driver and said, "Oh, that's all right, I'll do my 6 hours of jury service during the day and I'll drive my taxi 4 hours at night," well, I'm only doing the same. I cannot afford to stop working. If I stop working, you may find yourself in
and I certainly
in
can't
trouble.
afford to stop working.
Exactly. So you might find yourself in a position where you can't work. So I think it's all crazy. But anyway, I've got to make another representation to the judge in the case tomorrow. The representation I made at the moment.
Are you required to wear a tie or a suit or anything like that?
I've got no instructions on that whatsoever.
Really? Are you going to wear a tie? I think you should.
Yes, I think I should, actually. If it's jury service, I think I should. It'd be the first time I've worn a tie for a long time. But no, and the other point here is that... what was I going to say there? You put me off when you talked about wearing a tie.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No.
So
No. Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
All you've got to do is that in front of the judge, and he'll say, "Look, you're out."
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
You obviously can't remember anything.
The
for longer than about 5
representation
minutes.
I was advised to make by a very helpful lady there, I can't remember her name now, but she's head of the jury office.
Right.
She said, "We'll make a representation of the judge." So I made a representation of the judge, who is the sitting recorder at the Croydon Crown Court. But now I've got to make another presentation tomorrow.
Right.
I have to have a visitation.
To whoever the judge happens to be
exactly.
on that particular week.
Exactly, on that particular case, because there's more than one judge at these places.
Right.
There's more than one Crown Court, I think. So, we'll have to see. I don't know.
My father was once called up for jury duty, and he was told off for a drawing. Because he used to draw sort of caricatures of people while he was in the dock.
Yes.
But he also, while he was in the dock, he was wandering around a corridor.
In the dock or the court?
In the court. He was wandering around the corridor, and he ran into a guy who was a friend of his from the golf club, who was a judge.
Oh.
And my dad said to him, "Oh yeah, they've just sort of retired us for the afternoon." This was about lunchtime.
Right.
And he said, "Oh, fantastic! Should we go and have a game of golf?" And he said, "Yeah, that's a great idea." But he said, "Well, I've just got to go and dismiss this case." And he went into the courtroom and basically adjourned it for the rest of the afternoon, so he could go and play golf.
That's amazing.
Isn't that amazing?
Absolutely amazing, yeah. The other thing is, you say again, and I don't know about this, do they specify a certain level of alcohol you might be allowed to imbibe in the lunchtime break?
I don't think you'd be allowed to have any. Surely they would not encourage you to go. I mean, I don't even know if you have a lunchtime break. You probably have like a short, maybe an hour, no more than an hour.
Yeah, to be an hour, but they don't lock you in the room, do they?
Well, they might do if it's a case that you're not allowed to. Yeah, because I mean, if you're if you're involved in a case, right, and you have to not talk to anybody about it, you wouldn't be allowed to mingle in a pub with people who might be witnesses or who might be.
Sure, you can.
I don't think so. I think you're locked in.
I'm sure I've seen TV dramas, and I only say TV drama, where a juror has been tapped up in the lunch hour, by somebody from the family of the accused
but I'm not
or something
sure
like
that can happen, so I think they might keep you in. Maybe you should take some sandwiches.
Maybe I should take
a flask.
I was going to say take a flask of white wine or something.
I'm pretty sure they won't encourage any sort of alcoholic.
Because I'm not sure I can get through the day without having at least a sherbet at lunchtime.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? That doesn't sound good. Here's something from Pete the Power, who says, "Porky, you better watch 12 Angry Men later on, then do Porky Vision on it through the week."
Yeah, good idea. It says here 178,000 people in England and Wales do jury service each year. Okay.
Right.
To extend it to the age limit from 70 to 75 adds 3 million people to the eligible pool, okay?
Right. So they must have an eligibility pool of about 10 million, mustn't they?
34 million.
34 million.
It says
and
here...
they've picked you.
Yeah, it says adding 3 million to 70 to 75-year-olds to the eligible pool will take it to over 34 million.
Goodness me.
34 million people eligible to do jury service.
You've got to be pretty unlucky then to be picked.
Well, if it says 178,000 people every year, so say that's 1/5 of a million, okay? Because a million is 5 times. So it's 1/5. So 5 is 1 million.
Yeah.
It's 34 million.
Yeah.
So that's 34 times 5. That's what's that? That's
about
170.
Yeah.
170. So it's 1 in 170.
Yeah. 1 in 170?
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's right.
It is.
Oh.
It is.
It doesn't sound right. I'll have to put that out on paper.
Stop beating that fudge, 'cause here come the judge. Don't nobody budge, 'cause here come the judge.
I must admit, there is a certain kind of, I imagine for a lot of people, there will be a certain sort of wish that they could be in the same room as you and the judge in the morning, having the conversation.
Yes, well, I don't know, I mean, it's just so far, it's been a blind no, and I'm not asking to be excused. I'm saying, would you please accept that, I am merely trying to make sure I do not disrupt the working of the trial and the due process of justice. That's all I'm trying to point out to you. And I've never had, a response back saying, thank you very much indeed, and after all the considerations, I've just had a no. Turn up at 10 o'clock on Monday morning, else.
Do you think there's a sense of sort of little sort of bureaucracy going on, where they're just going, no, we make no exceptions, the regulations are the regulations, that's it?
That's exactly what they said. And when they called me famous, of course, then I got a sort of hint that they've got another agenda, because I said I'm not claiming to be famous. And by the way, if famous people do it, I can't remember the last time Russell Brand was on a jury.
Well, I don't think
I can't remember the last time John Cleese was on a jury.
Maybe it can't be reported. Maybe that's the whole point. Maybe you never find out unless you happen to be actually in the courtroom.
You can afterwards when it's all done and dusted and have gone down.
Do you remember in America when we worked there? And I remember the Bernie Goetz case, who was the guy who was the subway gunman who shot somebody on the subway.
Yes.
And during the sort of whole trial, the jury were all kind of identified because over there there's no reason not to identify them.
That's right. Yeah.
And when they came out, they were all giving interviews. Some of them were bought up. Some of them did books. I mean, it's an incredibly different system.
That's right.
Where you can make you can make a load of money out of being a juror.
Indeed,
it's actually worth doing.
Yeah, that's
if you get a good case.
I will be taking notes, actually, about the whole jury process, and then probably write a piece for a literary or a political magazine.
Perhaps you could write a piece for a legal journal.
Yeah, a legal journal, yeah.
Like
good
the
idea.
law reporter.
Yeah, good
How
idea.
about this from Redman? He says, if 178,000 per year are picked for jury service from a pool of 34 million, then the chances of being picked are 0.005%.
Right.
So not one in whatever it was you said.
Well, what is 1 in 178 as a decimal point?
What?
As a decimal, as an equation.
Well, no, you said it was something like 1 in 12 or something, didn't you?
No, I said 1 in 178.
1 in 178.
Yeah,
All right. Well, that's zero. I think 0.005% is much less than that.
Is it? Okay.
I would have thought.
I'll take your word for it.
And Rodney says, you might remember the story we did some weeks ago on a Sunday show. Thanks to Mike Parry for informing the masses that Finn's Law is going to be debated tomorrow in Parliament. He is a man of the animals too. Finn's Law was about the police dogs and police horses.
Oh, great.
The same treatment.
This is excellent. Yeah,
because they managed to get enough signatures on the petition.
Oh, excellent.
After we covered it on one of our shows.
Well, I'm absolutely thrilled. That's great. And what just to recap with our millions of listeners, what that means is that when a dog has been killed in action or a horse been damaged in action, they are referred to as the property of the Metropolitan Police or the property of the Lancashire Constabulary.
And also they're given a rank,
but so what the idea is, you give them a rank so that they are, in fact, referred to as a living creature.
And they're not forgotten.
That's right. And there were, there's compensatory measures to help them for treatments and all that kind of stuff.
Which is
excellent.
Yeah, so that's going to be debated tomorrow in Parliament. So we'll keep you up to speed on that as well. Now, we're going to be joined now by Steve Stammers, though, because we're going to talk about Gareth Southgate. On all the back pages this morning, it's basically saying, he's not going to get the job straight away because the FA needs to talk to some more people, and even though after the Spain game it should have happened, it's probably not going to happen now until the end of November. I think that's mad. Steve, a very good afternoon to you. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mike. Good afternoon, Mike.
Yeah, hi, Steve. Great to hear from you, pal.
Now, why on earth can the FA not seem to get anything right? I mean, they've got another opportunity to get something right, and they seem to be getting it wrong.
Well, this time I think they will get it right. I think they're just going through the process, Mike, to be honest with you. He's the outstanding candidate, Gareth Southgate, by some distance. If you don't appoint him, you're asking England players to deal with their fourth manager inside a year, something like that. Not going to. I mean, you want stability, and you're leaving the way open for chaos,
Right, but why not then just say Gareth Southgate's got the job? I mean, why bother interviewing more candidates?
Well, exactly. But I think there's a process they've got to go through, Mike. That's the only, I won't say excuse, but that's the only reason I can give.
No, I agree with that. And according to a piece you've written today, Steve, it's a done deal, yeah?
I would think so. There is no other candidate that comes near Gareth Southgate if you think about it. There might be someone at a club somewhere, but then that brings in all sorts of, how can I put it, complications, with contracts and so forth. Gareth knows the FA. I think maybe the only, when I say sticking point, might be the length of the contract.
Right.
It's going to be one of two, isn't it? It's going to be get us to the World Cup and then we'll reassess.
Yes.
Or World Cup plus the next Euros.
Yes, exactly.
Which I think is by far the better option, to be honest with you. So to all intents and purposes, it's a 3.5-year contract.
And supposedly he favours a longer contract, doesn't he, Gareth? Because that was what we were told last week.
Well, don't all managers, really. The longer the contract. And Gareth's not there in a mercenary fashion. Gareth's there because he loves the job and he wants the job. And he wants his ideas to be able to be in place.
What are his ideas, actually, Steve? What are they?
Well, I mean, I'll give you one name, John Stones. Now, Stones got an awful lot of stick on Friday night, and maybe kind of rightly so in many, many ways, because of the way he got caught. But as Southgate said to us afterwards, he saw PK at 22.
Yeah.
When he was manager at Middlesbrough and PK was a Manchester United player. And I think his exact words were, he was nowhere near the real deal. And if we're going to encourage people to become real good defenders on the international stage, you're going to have to be patient. You're going to have to let them learn by their mistakes, bravery, but not...
And let them do it against weaker teams like Scotland. Well, no, seriously, I'm not being rude to Scotland, but I mean, you wouldn't want him to be doing that if we were playing in a semi-final of a World Cup.
Well, exactly, but isn't it better to make those mistakes against Scotland?
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
And then the next time you might be that bit more sharper And Southgate said he's working for the perfect manager at club level in Pep Guardiola.
Yeah. Well, he says that as well about people like John Stones. I mean, John Stones makes quite a lot of mistakes and continues to make them. And I don't know why people keep saying that he's going to be learning. Do you know what I mean?
Many. No, I understand what you're saying, but I don't think he actually makes that many. What happens is, as a central defender, if you make a mistake, it's a bit like a goalkeeper. If you make a mistake, it's going to really be, sort of apparent to everyone. And often it's costly because you're the last line of defence ahead of the goalkeeper. If a striker misses 3 goals, I beg your pardon, three openings, 3 chances, for well number 4 is going to be on its way.
Yeah.
So that they'll forgive it. I mean, who made that horrendous miss against Scotland from about a yard out? Was it Sterling?
Yes. Yes, it was on the line.
Yeah, Sterling was a contender for man of the match.
Yeah, he was. Yeah,
and yet Stones can make one mistake and get pilloried for it, or maybe 2 or 3 mistakes. I honestly think if, as Southgate said, if we're going to have people like Hummels and Boateng and Piqué, you've got to let them develop. You've got to let them make the mistakes. And as Gareth Southgate pointed out on Friday evening when we were talking to him. A 22 is a baby in central defensive terms.
Sure. Now, Steve, just getting on to the issue of the individual, Gareth Southgate, why am I uneasy about how earnest Gareth Southgate always looks? He's got this beard, he's stroking his beard, he's talking in philosophical terms about, I love my profession. Sorry, I love my sport, but I'm not sure I love my profession. And, talking about I am tasked with the task of winning 4 games. I mean, he sounds like he wants to be a philosopher as well as a football manager.
Yeah, we started calling him Pep Southgate.
Maybe it's because we're not used to someone who's educated in a job like that.
Well, I'd much prefer Harry Redknapp to say, no, I told the boy, my missus could have scored that one, I mean, I prefer that sort of stuff.
Yeah, but we're all talking, maybe you prefer it, but not everyone talks in the same way, do they?
No, of course they don't.
No, but he's very articulate, and he's a winner. Trust me. I mean,
he didn't win at Middlesbrough.
No,
did he?
That's not to say he didn't want to win.
Well, I'm sure he wanted to win, but
I'm
he
not
couldn't.
sure the definition of being
I'm
not sure wanting to win is the definition of being a winner. Is it?
I'd like to be a millionaire.
I thought you were a millionaire.
Well, sorry, I'd like to be a millionaire again, if you see what I mean.
Is Harry Redknapp a winner?
Yeah, of course he is. A huge winner.
Well, how come Southampton got relegated then?
Well, Southampton got relegated because Harry wasn't there long enough to stop it, to be honest.
But overall, I mean, Steve, you know as well as we do that overall you look at somebody's...
Harry won?
You look at somebody's career.
Harry's won the FA Cup, as we all know.
He got Tottenham into the Champions League. Why are we arguing about Harry Redknapp?
Yeah, exactly. Why does it always come back to Harry? I did.
But here's the thing. The more important question for me is really, what has the FA learned from the last few years of appointing managers, failing miserably, seeing the team knocked out of tournaments too early?
God, talk about negativity.
What exactly have they now told Gareth Southgate, which is going to make things any different from what we've seen in the past?
I think we've got an over-expectation in England about what our team is capable of doing. We've got a hint of arrogance about us, which results don't justify. If you go Italia 90, Euro 96, and apart from that, maybe it was a bit unlucky against Argentina, but we haven't done anything to base that optimism on. And why I say arrogance, when we finish second in our group and they say, that means we're going to have to play France in the last 8. Excuse me, you've got to beat Iceland. Now, people might have mocked that idea. Iceland beat Holland twice in qualifying and the Czech Republic once. If England had beaten Holland home and away, and beaten the Czech Republic, you'd say, well, we've got a good team.
Sure.
And they were a good team. They were very organised. Now, what I'm saying, the point I'm making to you is, I don't think we're as good as we think we are.
No, I totally agree, but it's...
Nowhere near. I think the FA have made some bad choices as England manager, but there we go. That's just from a personal perspective. But I think Gareth Southgate, if you're looking at the candidates who are there now, he's the outstanding candidate.
But
he's the only candidate.
He's the only candidate. But I suppose what I'm asking, Steve, is do they set him targets? Will they set him targets? Will they say, you must qualify for the World Cup, which looks likely? But what will they say after that?
Well, I don't think you need to say that to Southgate. You have to qualify for the World Cup. That's what I was saying about the length of the contract, Mike. You know, whether the contract is until the end of the World Cup.
Yeah.
Either the end of the qualifying or the end of the finals to see how far we get, or you say it's inclusive of the next Euros.
I mean, Mr. Glenn
That would be the option I prefer.
Yeah, well, Mr. Glenn was quite specific, wasn't he, with Roy Hodgson, that you've got to prove yourself before we give you the sort of contract you want, which I applauded. I think there's no problem with, achievement and reward. As you quite rightly say, the problem with the 4-year contract is it makes a manager who's earning £3 million a year a very comfortable man, doesn't it?
Well, that depends on the individual.
Well, does it?
There are some, I'll give an example, and despite what you might think he's not the player he was, Wayne Rooney is probably one of the top earning players in the country.
In the world, probably.
Probably in the world, but certainly in the country. Yeah. I'll tell you what, you wouldn't want to face Wayne Rooney. He is a winner. Now, he may not be the player he was, but attitude-wise and application-wise, Wayne Rooney is a winner.
Of course he is.
You saw that on Friday night.
Yeah, exactly.
So what I'm saying about a comfort zone, I mean, Gareth Southgate's probably in a very good comfort zone now financially. Yeah. It's not my business what he's done, but he's had some good jobs in football. Yeah. And I should imagine he's very comfortable. Yeah. He's doing it for the ambition.
Yeah. I'd like to be Andre Villas-Boas and look at his bank account because
he's getting 11 million a year in China.
Two villas.
You're absolutely right. I mean, he is the most successful failure in the history of football, isn't he?
Absolutely. Despite what Mourinho says about Arsene Wenger, there really is a specialist in failure, and he's just got a job in China, isn't he? About £80 million a year.
That's right.
I don't know how that works.
And he picked up about 11 million, didn't he, from Chelsea? About another 8 million from Spurs. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
He might have got some from Zenit St. Petersburg, I think, along the way as well.
Exactly, Hence the nickname Two Villas.
Exactly, it's brilliant. Yeah.
Well, Steve, I'm sure we'll be talking to you very much more in the future because as we keep our eye on Gareth Southgate, a lot of people not entirely convinced that Gareth Southgate is a winner. Yeah. And Jim says this: John Stones completed tackles versus Scotland 0. Pep Guardiola's actually made him worse. And here's one from Tomo, who says Porky's mental arithmetic was very close. Odds of selection for jury are 191 to 1.
Thank you.
Porky said 170 to 1.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Thank you very much indeed.
Good afternoon, I'm Mike Graham, he's Mike Parry, you're listening to the Two Mikes on Talk Sport. We've been talking about Gareth Southgate coming up in this hour. We've got heroes and villains, whether he'll figure in any of that remains to be seen. We'll have the Porky Sermon coming up a little bit later on as well. And also, we'll be talking about Lewis Hamilton and whether he can keep the Formula One race going for the final race after Brazil. That comes up later on today at 4 o'clock, of course. You're listening to the Two Mikes with me, Mike Graham, and Mike Parry on Talk Sport. Will be a podcast coming out a little bit later on, of course, as well. And, of course, we'll be here all week coming up following Mr. Parry's jury duty, as long as it doesn't, as long as you don't get incarcerated or something like that.
Well, I hope nothing goes wrong tomorrow when I go to the Crown Court. I mean, I end up getting locked up for something. Yeah. And,
you'll have to be quite careful, I think.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
The judges are very touchy about contempt and that sort of thing.
Well, I don't blame them, because it's a very serious business, and I have nothing but reverence and respect for all judges who sit in courts, because they dispense justice, and they're learned men. But I just want to make sure I don't do anything wrong. Listen, we've talked a lot on this show about the West Ham situation, right?
We have.
Now, I'll tell you what I saw this morning. First of all, it was the former West Ham owner, Egert Magnusson.
Oh, the Icelandic guy.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't the owner. He was the guy put in place by the owner back in Iceland.
Right.
Do you remember him? The sort of dome-headed chap with the big ears.
Yes. I don't remember he had particularly big ears.
Yeah, he did, yeah. Yeah, his name was Egert Magnusson.
Right.
And he suddenly come back into the debate and said, you've got to tear the stadium down. Now,
Well, he's not the first person to have said that, is he?
He's not, but... What struck me about this piece that I've seen in a national newspaper this morning is a picture of him. He says, tear it down. He said, it's not fit for football. But they've taken a picture of the stadium from an angle I haven't seen before, almost from the seat furthest back in the stadium, looking at the stadium. And the one thing that struck me immediately was that the seats are simply not cambered steep enough for a football stadium.
Well, this is
This
is one of the things that's been a constant problem, because what people say when they go to the games is that when people stand up, unlike at a normal football stadium, it can be a bit irritating if people stand up, but you can usually see over them.
Yeah.
And if you really have to stand up, it's not a massive problem. Whereas here, if people stand up, because it's quite shallow, you literally can't see anything.
I mean,
and that's why they're having all these rows about, sit down and, fights break out and all the rest
in this picture I've shown you, the rise of the seats from the front row to, I would say, halfway back is so shallow.
Right.
It's so shallow, it's almost imperceptible. And then behind them, the rise is very steep.
Yeah.
But the picture taken from this seat at the back means that, quite frankly, would you be able to even detect which player was on the ball from so far away?
No, and the other thing that doesn't help as well is that long sort of expanse of green, like fake grass,
absolutely,
AstroTurf around the pitch.
Yeah,
because when you see when you see the managers walking around,
that's right,
you realise that there's a massive gap between where your first seat is and the pitch.
There is literally enough room for a five-a-side pitch on the edges. Now, what Mr. Magnuson says, and some might say, well, this is very unhelpful. Why is he getting involved? It's nothing to do with the club these days, and I've always talked about my admiration for the two owners, Mr. Gold and Mr. Sullivan.
Yes,
they're very successful
but
businessmen.
it has gone a bit wrong for him, though,
well, something along the way has gone wrong. But what he says, right, Mr. Magnuson, the Icelander, drew up plans for the venue to become the Hammers' home back in 2006. So this was when the debate really started. Okay,
right.
In 2006, West Ham were holding talks about acquiring the stadium. London won the bid to host the Olympic Games in 2012 and 2005.
Right.
So even before the stadium had been built, West Ham went in there and said...
presumably the people building the stadium were not building it with football in mind. They were building it with the Olympics in mind, right?
This is the point Mr. Magnuson makes. Yeah. He says the Icelander drew up plans for the venue to become the Hammers' home back in 2006, but the plans were rejected because London 2012 chief Lord Coe wanted an athletics legacy following the Olympics.
Yes.
So he always wanted it to be a stadium that could house athletics, okay?
And you can't imagine, I would think, on that committee of people who were planning the stadium, that there were many representatives of the football world.
Exactly.
They were all these kind of Olympian types.
Yeah,
right?
exactly, because it was an Olympic stadium.
Right.
It says the Hammers were eventually granted tenancy, but only after the stadium was built. They moved in at the start of this season, but the switch has been beset by problems. Overall costs spiralled to more than 750 million, while club chiefs have battled to deal with crowd trouble. Mr. Magnuson, 69, said his plans would have avoided the violence and saved a fortune. He said, you cannot build an Olympic stadium and then make it a football stadium. You begin with football in mind. We had plans and costings for a stadium with retractable seats like the Stade de France.
Because that was what we kept hearing, these retractable seats
Absolutely.
were going to make it much easier to view the football. It was going to make it a much more sort of football-like stadium.
Yeah.
But that's sort of gone by the wayside.
Have you been to the Stade de France?
Yes.
I saw the 2006 Champions League final there when Arsenal lost to Barcelona, was it?
Yes. Would you not have seen the rugby there as well when you were the rugby correspondent?
Oh, yeah, I would have done. Yeah, I did. Yeah, that's absolutely right. I did, yeah. But what I'm saying is, when football was being played there, it seemed like a football stadium, you know what I mean?
Right.
So, but anyway, he says you begin with football in mind, with plans and costings. Upton Park had a special atmosphere, and you want fans to hear the tackles, and you want the fans to hear the managers shouting at each other. What we have now is a mess. Money has been thrown down the toilet, and the original plans could have saved hundreds of millions. The stadium is simply unfit for football. It's a coliseum for athletics. You have people 40 metres from the pitch.
Yeah.
I mean, 40 metres is a hell of a distance.
And is that just from the front row? Is it 40 metres to the
Well,
front
I think
row,
he probably means to the back. He would get the furthest possible point, I would say. He says you have people 40 metres from the pitch moving to concourses so they can see, so they walk into the standing areas. He says also that you have big open spaces outside, which are very difficult to police, and rival fans sharing concourses inside. The seats are very slow and expensive to move, as they were an afterthought. I really feel sorry for the fans. I don't think anything can be done now. It's better for it to be torn down and rebuilt from scratch.
But they couldn't possibly do that, could they?
Well,
I mean, that would be a massive...
Who's going to pay for it?
Well, it would be a massive admission that they'd got it wrong. One.
Yeah.
But also, two, had they not put West Ham in there, and I know that Orient wanted to go in there as well, if it wasn't being used for football, it would just be a white elephant, wouldn't it?
Well, it should have been knocked down. I think that's the answer.
But surely you can't build stadiums for an Olympic event and then just get rid of them.
Well,
it's like a pop-up stadium.
Yes, it is, but I think you can. Maybe
that's what they should be thinking about.
I think if you go to Greece and find out what's happened to the stadiums there, you'll be shocked. And even at one time, we can ask Sandra this actually when we speak to her this week, our great correspondent down in Australia. I think until some government department got involved, the stadium in Australia, which was the venue for the Olympics there when we did so well, our Olympians, went into rack and ruin and disrepair. Because
and so did the one in Beijing, I think, what they called the
Bird's Nest
Stadium.
And I talked recently about the stadiums in South Africa, including Cape Town, and I said that had fallen to disrepair. I then got an email from somebody in South Africa saying, no, it's not. The Cape Town Stadium's good. Yeah. So somebody's obviously perked it up, and that's great. But nevertheless, there was one in Johannesburg. It was called Football City or something, something like that. But apparently, they are having a problem trying to find out what to do with the thing.
Yeah. But, I mean, they're going to have a problem with this West Ham Stadium now for the rest of the season and probably for the rest of the time. And I don't know what they're going to do to fix it. Yeah. I mean, supposedly now the police are going to be able to use their radios, so they're talking about policing properly. But, I mean, it's an absolute nightmare. If you're the West Ham owners, you must be tearing your hair out.
No, absolutely.
Because I don't know what they can do about it. Yeah. Now, let me read you a few tweets about Southgate as well. Yep. One from Nigel, who says, Southgate's play out from the back... Full back tactics are shocking, and England will get poorer. England need to go back to playing 4-4-2 Italian 90 style. They need to play English, not foreign. Gwyn says Southgate is Mr. Loser or Mr. Average at best. Is that what we need for our national team at the moment?
Well, I think that's a bit harsh, isn't it? Because I mean, he hasn't lost a game so far. Okay, I haven't played anybody of any consequence.
Any good, really.
Yeah, I agree with that. But nevertheless, I think to start, pouring bile on the guy before he's even really got going is not a good thing.
No, indeed. And there's one here from someone who says basically that if Harry Redknapp is a winner for winning the FA Cup, so is Gareth Southgate. He won the League Cup when he was at Middlesbrough.
I don't think he did.
As he was captain, not when he was...
exactly. Steve McManaman was the manager. Yeah.
Not when he was the manager.
Yeah, and he was the captain, was he? Okay. Now, you've tried to rile some of my followers by telling them that when I waved to the Everton team on Runcorn Station...
Well, it wasn't just me. I think you'll find
they didn't wave back.
No, the Liverpool Echo, in fact, published a story which was headlined Everton team blank Mike Parry.
I know, it's rather harsh.
It was quite harsh. Have you had my learned friends get in touch with them over that, by the way?
It could well be happening because I'm going to be with a few my learned friends tomorrow. I might tap up a few, lawyers there and
That's
find
another
out.
thing, actually. You might recognise a couple of the lawyers because, I mean, we know some lawyers who work in the criminal barrister kind of area.
Of course we do.
And what are you supposed to do if you're a juror and one of your mates it turns out to be a lawyer? Presumably you can absent yourself, can't you?
Yeah, well, just go and... perhaps I could bribe somebody to become my friend. No, sorry, I did not mean that. That was a joke. Don't worry about that. Yeah, I'm not into anything like that, believe me.
I've got a prediction here that says contempt of court before 10 a.m. What odds are Betsafe giving on Porky being locked up?
Well, exactly. This is what I'm worrying. Yeah. No, but anyway, the reason I mentioned the train is, listen to this. Yeah. The 14:55 from Manchester to London Euston arrived 8 minutes late on last Thursday, okay? After a scheduled 15:29 stop at Crewe, right, which should have been its last stop.
We stopped at Crewe, I think.
Yeah, we stopped at Crewe, yeah. It made 2 unscheduled stops to the mild bemusement of passengers. Right. It stopped at Lichfield Trent Valley, which just happens to be very close to St George's Park, where the England team train, and picked up England players, and it then stopped unscheduled at Watford, which is very near the Grove Hotel, where they stay the night before the game in London.
By coincidence.
To drop them off.
Really?
Yes.
How strange is that?
So, and it says here, it's a Virgin train, right? I mean, if I ring up Richard Branson and say, "Oh, Richard, by the way, Mike Graham and I have got a show in Chester, but the train we're getting is to Liverpool. Would you mind if we just diverted and stop there?"
I'm sure this happens more often than we get off. I once got on a train when I was going down to the coast in Sussex a couple of years ago, and I noticed a very tall, sort of attractive-looking woman standing on the platform with a very much shorter man, and she was wearing a pair of those Louboutin shoes, with the red soles. Yes, and I realised it was Holly Willoughby. Oh. And as the train took off down through the sort of Kent countryside, the train suddenly stopped at a station which it wasn't supposed to stop at, and she and this bloke got off and wandered off.
And they were the only people who got off.
They were the only people who got off because the train was not scheduled to stop.
You sure about this?
I'm absolutely sure.
You sure it was Holly Willoughby?
I was definitely Holly Willoughby. Wow. I saw it with my own eyes. So I think that sort of thing happens quite a lot. Maybe you should get some kind of celebrity status type stopping at your stop.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Good thinking.
That music can only mean one thing. It's what we do every Sunday when we do a show. It's heroes and villains. Mr. Parry picks 2 heroes and 2 villains. I pick 2 heroes and 2 villains, and our producer John will decide which one of us should win. Although the last time we did it, we forgot to mention live on air who'd actually won.
Yes.
Although it was revealed later on Twitter that it was me.
Yeah,
so I think currently
it didn't
score,
count because it wasn't revealed
the
in
score,
time.
I think, is something like 5-2 to me. So I don't know whether you'd like to go first with one of your heroes or one of your villains, or whether you'd like me to go first.
I'll go first with a hero, okay?
Go on.
Right. Well, my hero, believe it or not, considering I have a checkered history of relationships with this man, is Rafa Benitez.
Really?
Yes,
Weird.
because he's won the Championship Manager of the Month, and it's fully justified. And that was an appointment which was absolutely right. If Newcastle had to get themselves out of a hole, they just had to go for a quality manager, and they got the best quality manager available. And he not only did he win Manager of the Month, but when he had the official picture taken, he had 4 members of his backroom staff, none of whom are famous, with him, and he said, it's a team effort, and this is how we're getting out of it. So I think he's handled the thing extremely well. I think Newcastle handled the thing, a disaster, a crisis extremely well. So it's got to be Rafa.
It looks as though they won't be down the Championship for very long.
Exactly.
That's not a bad one. I'm going to have to go with Eddie Jones as my first hero, because after all, England beating South Africa 37-21, very, very resoundingly, for the first time in 10 years, is a magnificent achievement for him. And also, as we've said before, we love the fact that he's very sort of understated about it, and the fact that he's not still happy that England are not at their best, and he still thinks they can get more out of them. He says there is, there's a lot more to come, and I won't be happy until, I think he won't be happy until they've basically beaten the All Blacks consistently, over and over and over again. I think he's a fantastic. If only the England football setup could find somebody like him, all would be sorted out.
Indeed.
So up to you again.
Right. So my first villain is John Cleese.
John Cleese.
Now, we mentioned him in the Hand Over the Show with Max earlier, but it's something which I think is absolutely devilish. John Cleese actually made a joke during one of his shows that he intimated he wished a couple of his wives would just pop their clogs because he's paying so much alimony to them.
Right.
I mean, that's shocking. If the man can't get his domestic life right, it's not really his fault that when they get to the courts and he's an immensely wealthy man, he's got to pay his wives 11 million quid.
Well,
he should have got it right in the first
and
place.
as we've often said, he's a man who clearly doesn't get very good lawyers involved because he should have done a lot better than that. But, I mean, surely if he's just making a joke, it's a bit harsh to criticise him for trying to be funny on stage. Well, I mean, some of the things we say on stage are probably not worth repeting. Otherwise, we get into all sorts of trouble.
Well, yes and no. But I mean, the point is, he went into it in such detail. I don't want my wives dead in a slow, agonising death over a number of years. Something quick, like a tree falling on them.
Right.
I mean, that's pretty specific.
Well, it is, but he's obviously quite bitter and twisted about it. I think he's being a bit harsh on him, to be honest.
No, well, I don't, because I think that's a dreadful thing to say about any human being wanting somebody dead. And even if you say it's a joke, I don't think it's a very good joke.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I think you've been very hard on him. I'm going to say my first villain is Gordon Strachan.
Right.
Gordon Strachan, who, when he was put in charge of the Scotland team, was thought to be a breath of fresh air. He had a couple of decent results at the beginning, but it's all gone horribly wrong now. And I think the reason he's a villain for me is that after the game on Friday night, when they played, I know you said they didn't play that badly, but they had a couple of chances, but they really were pretty woeful. And then probably not going to qualify for the World Cup again. He said when he was asked about his future, he turned it into some kind of ridiculous kind of thing about, why are you asking it about? I'm sorry for the fans. I'm sorry for the players and the people, the families that came down to watch this. Why would I be thinking about me? When it's a perfectly valid question, because quite frankly, if he has when he continues with this kind of level of failure, then he should walk away from the job. And it's not impertinent to ask him about that. So he's a villain for me.
Okay, fine. Now, what's that? My second hero.
Your second hero now.
Well, my second hero is Richard Scudamore. A report has come out, published today, which says that the average salary, this is the average salary, of a Premier League footballer is £2.4 million a year.
Average.
Yeah. So that if you're an average player in the Premier League, and I mean most Premier League players are obviously very good players, but average by comparison.
There's plenty of average ones as well.
Well, only in comparison to the others. You're earning £2.4 million. When the Premier League was set up in 1992, the average salary of a footballer in the Premier League was 77k.
Really?
77k a year, right? In 95, 96, 130, and so on and so on. It is now 2.4 million.
But how does that make Richard Scudamore a hero?
Because Richard Scudamore...
It makes you a hero if you're a footballer.
Yeah, well, it makes him a hero to the football industry because the amount of money that he's generated through this and each footballer... And the other amazing thing in this report today, the best paid team in the world is Manchester United. Their players, on average, get £5.77 million a year.
Really?
That's over £100,000 a week.
And I presume they've got one of the highest paid managers now with Jose as well.
Exactly. And they even beat Barcelona on 5.65, and Manchester City 5.42, Real Madrid 5.05. Astonishing figures.
But once again, I mean, making him a hero because he's made an awful lot of people rich is a sort of typical thing you could do.
No, it's because he has made the football in this country, Premier League football, the best in the world and so successful. That in itself contributes enormously to the economy of this country.
That's true, but I imagine a lot of people will be quite angry that you've given those figures out because it's an awful lot of money. 2.4 million is the average salary now of Premier League football. That's incredible.
The average pay of a La Liga footballer is half. It's 1.2 million.
Right.
Yeah.
But then La Liga has got an awful lot of teams in it that aren't that wealthy as well.
Yeah.
My second hero of the weekend has got to be Conor McGregor. Now, this is a guy who I know you're always disparaging. He's a UFC fighter.
The guy who won last night.
Yeah, they had a UFC fight in New York City.
Our friend Dom went to see him, didn't he?
Well, he didn't go to see that, but he was watching it.
He's watching it.
Because it was in Manhattan, and it's the first time they've ever had a UFC meeting in New York, because up until that moment, UFC 205, it was banned by the New York State Legislature, who said that it was cage fighting and they weren't allowing it and all that. But this guy has made it such a massive business, and he's now done something that nobody else has done, which is to make to hold belts in two different weight divisions, right? Featherweight and now lightweight, because he knocked out Eddie Alvarez last night inside 2 rounds. So and this guy is a massive sort of superstar now, no matter whether you like UFC or not. I mean, this guy is making an absolute fortune. He's now saying that he's more important than any UFC organisation or fighter that he can name. So I think, it's been a great weekend for Ireland generally, because Northern Ireland won and the Republic did as well. So he's my second nomination.
Okay. My second villain.
Your second villain.
Has got to be Ed Balls. I mean, every time I read about him, every time I see a picture of him playing the clown in Strictly Come Dancing, I shake my head in wonder and say to myself, you nearly destroyed the economy of this country. You are responsible for, some of the worst decisions in the fiscal history of the United Kingdom, and yet you want to try and get yourself back into the affections of the general public by playing the clown. You're supposed to be a politician, serious politician. What we're seeing now is, actually, you've never been a serious politician. You've always been a clown.
Yeah. Well, I don't suppose there'll be many people that will argue with that one. I'm going to go political as well for my second villain. I'm going to make it Donald Trump.
Right.
Not because I particularly have any enmity towards Donald Trump.
Yes.
I mean, a lot of people do.
Yes.
And the fact that he's now been made the first president of the United States who's never actually ever worked as a politician, never had held any political office, never served in the armed forces. Everybody's wondering.
He got an exemption for the armed forces.
Yeah. Everybody's wondering what he's going to do, and it probably won't be as bad as everybody thinks. But in addition to Donald Trump being a massive villain, he then invites Nigel Farage over for a ridiculous picture opportunity in his gold lift, which looks really, really bizarre.
Yes.
And so I think, given the timing of this week, I think you have to have Donald Trump in there somewhere. So he's my second nominee.
Yeah, well, I that's quite a good one. I wouldn't know whether to choose between Donald Trump or Nigel Farage because is Nigel Farage really acting in the national interest?
Well, I don't think he is.
Nudging his way past the Prime Minister to get to Donald Trump, the President-elect, first. I'm not sure he is.
Well, I wonder whether when Donald Trump finally does come to the UK, which presumably he will at some point, he's not going to want to be very interested in meeting Boris Johnson, who told him that he never wanted to meet him on the streets of New York. But you can imagine Farage kind of operating as his front man, as his kind of pilot fish.
Yes, you can.
Leading him through the door of Downing Street.
Yes, you can.
And suddenly making himself kind of Trump's UK envoy or something.
No, I totally agree.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up as UK ambassador to America.
I think that's very unlikely because he's not even an MP anymore, is he?
Well, no, I know, but you don't have to be an MP to be an ambassador. Anyone can be an ambassador.
I suppose you could, but it's mostly an American thing. They make people like Shirley, what's her name? The child
Shirley
actress.
Conran?
No, Shirley Temple.
Shirley Temple.
They made her an ambassador, didn't they, to Rome, I think, to Italy. So it's a bit of a gimmick, I think. What most interests me, because we haven't been able to speak to him for a while, is the relationship between our old pal Piers Morgan and the President of the United States of America. I mean, it's huge. On a much smaller scale, when Bill Clinton became the President-elect...
Yes.
I lost all communication with him because the Secret Service then take over.
You weren't as matey with Bill Clinton as Piers is with Trump, though.
Well, I mean, I was standing in a bar in Little Rock. He doesn't drink alcohol, Bill Clinton, having a beer with his right hand man, George Stephanopoulos, and Bill Clinton was there. No, the three of us.
Well,
yeah,
just the three of you?
Yes, yeah.
Well, nobody else?
No, it was a rally, and there were loads of people
That's
there,
what I mean.
when I was still in the same building.
Right.
And then one minute, you're able to get these guys on the phone. Next minute, the calls are just blocked.
But I think in the case of Trump and Piers Morgan, that's not the case, because they're mates from way back, because they were on The Apprentice
Celebrity
together.
Apprentice, wasn't it?
Celebrity Apprentice. And also, he's been quite sort of vociferous in his support of Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Not in everything that he said.
I don't quite understand that either, because Piers has a very interesting sort of political landscape, doesn't he?
Yes. Well, I mean, Piers is obsessed with celebrity and quite likes all of that. And so, he doesn't really necessarily have... I mean, what you would expect as an ex-bureau editor, some kind of beating heart of a socialist. He doesn't really have that.
Well, if he's still...
He's got a massive house in Sussex, big house in LA. I mean,
If he's still speaking the same way as the editorials in the Daily Mirror, he should never speak to Donald Trump again.
Well, he didn't write those.
No, of course he didn't, but he was at the helm of that paper for 9 years,
but he was also the editor of the News of the World before that.
Yeah, well, that's... he's a bit of a charlatan in terms of...
I think that's a very hard word to use.
Is it? All right, well, I apologise, even though you didn't invite me to your 50th birthday party.
The next time we get him on, I'll have to reveal that you've called him a charlatan.
No, I said some might interpret that as being charlatanistic.
I see.
Yes.
Charlatanistic?
Yes.
Isn't she a singer?
Probably.
Something like that.
You gotta fight for your right to party.
He was there with all your glamorous friends at your glamorous house and your glamorous swimming pool. Do you know how I spent that night? A packet of frozen fish fingers and a tin of mushy peas.
You gotta fight.
I couldn't have, Mylene Klass and Catherine Jenkins and Holly Willoughby exposed to Parry the Barbarian. It was a danger and a risk I wasn't prepared to take.
How could you do that to me?
So who was that?
Amazing what they find in the archives, isn't it?
Yeah, why has that been resurrected then?
Because you resurrected the fact that he didn't invite you to his birthday party.
I only mentioned it in passing. I was trying to get more serious about, the future of the Western world.
Yes, I know.
And what part that Piers might play in it.
Well, I wonder if he is going to play some part. I can't imagine it, really. I don't think they could pay him enough money to leave television and go work in the White House, can they?
Do both.
Well, we'll have to try and get him on and ask him about it.
Yeah.
Now, we were talking earlier about Wales. You thought that, they might have trouble, and I did as well, getting to the World Cup finals in Russia in 2018. The Republic of Ireland, however, had a fantastic result against Austria, didn't they?
But are standing in Wales's way, of course.
Are now standing in Wales's way, because even if Wales beat them in Dublin, as our previous guest suggested, they'll still be above them by 1 point. Let's talk to David Connolly, former international, of course, to find out what is making Ireland play so well at the moment. David, a very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon to you, Mike. How are you doing?
Yeah, very
well
well
indeed.
Very well
Thank
indeed.
you.
I mean, Roy Keane is never shy about coming forward and talking about some of the things that he thinks about Everton players and the football world in general. I mean, he and Martin O'Neill seem to be working a bit of magic at the moment.
Oh, yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, they didn't have the ball for a lot of the game, which is, starting to become obviously a trend for Ireland. But to get 10 points from 4 games is fantastic, particularly after drawing the first one 2-2. And, you've got lads now. I mean, I think part of what Roy was getting at, I feel, is obviously Ireland, it's a small nation. They need all their players that they can. They need everybody turning up just to have a chance. And obviously I think that's what Roy was getting at, in terms of Ronald Koeman, just making those players available, because, we never have been blessed with loads and loads of players. So we just need all the boys that we can. We need everyone fit, to give us a chance on the pitch.
Yeah, absolutely right. And as far as the finals are concerned, I mean, if Ireland do manage to get there by topping the group, I mean, they were a bit disappointing in previous finals that they've reached, weren't they? So, I'm talking about like in recent memory.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're always going to have that problem because, it gets back to qualifying. You've got so many teams now, obviously, same with the Euros, they've extended the qualification. That means you're playing a lot of countries that, frankly, probably not good enough. Now, when you get to a tournament finals, obviously the quality increases. Now, if Ireland don't have possession of the ball for 60% now, well, when it gets to a finals, what's it going to be like then? That's the only concern. So I think for Ireland, it's brilliant. Now they need, now they've got points on the board. Now they need a strategy. Right, if they do get to another finals, how are they going to maintain the ball a little bit longer? Otherwise, they'll just be coming home early. But I'm sure, Martin and Roy, they know that, but that's going to be hard to change in such a short amount of time. But I feel they just need to have a bit more faith, a bit more belief in the boys that they can actually retain the ball a bit better. Maybe they don't need to be so defensive. Who knows? Who knows?
Dave, I think you've been aided, Ireland been aided, you're the team you so proudly represented, by the fact that Wales have gone off the boil. Do you think they've just run out of steam? Because, they've been overachievers in the last European competitions, and I would imagine when the group was drawn, the one team that you didn't want to be in that group was Wales, but now they don't seem as formidable.
Well, I mean, what they have got is obviously they've got 1, 2, arguably, players at the very top. Your Gareth Bales, your Aaron Ramseys. I mean, Ireland would kill for one of those. They're two absolute players at the top of their peak. Now, saying that, obviously, if you've got those and you do rely on those players, then obviously you need them to perform. So if one or both of them have a little dip, then that gives you a chance. So, what would Ireland do against teams like that, and how do teams play against, say your Wales is you've got 1 or 2 really talented players. If you mark them tight enough, what you don't want is Gareth Bale receiving the ball on the edge of the box like he did, coming in on his left foot, and well, to be fair, it went in the middle of the goal. Now, so I think Ireland, I don't feel they've got much to fear, but saying that, Wales did have a really good Euros. I just feel that they're a really good team, that they do rely on 1 or 2 individuals, whereas Ireland, I think, just a real team. They're just a team. They need all 11 firing at once. And if 1 or 2 aren't on form, as you've seen in qualification, you've got Seamus Coleman popping up the goals, you've got Dale Murphy, you've got Walters, you've got Shane Long. Now they've got more of a team, I feel, a bit more depth, definitely.
It's strange. Chris Coleman said after the draw, because they've had 3 draws now, haven't they, and one victory Wales, he said, well, at least the group is in our own hands, home and away to Ireland. Frankly, I'd have thought it was the other way around. I would have thought that the group is now in Ireland's hands because they've got the points advantage and they've got those games home and away against Wales. So, without a shadow of a doubt, they're on the front foot, Ireland. I think Wales have got an awful lot to do to make up, and I think they're going to struggle to qualify now.
That's right. Well, I mean, they've got Ireland in their next, competitive game, and then they finish with Ireland. But by then, it might be all over.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, imagine Ireland going to Wales and then saying to Wales, "Come on in, break us down." I don't think Wales. That is not what Wales would want. Obviously, Wales would want to be probably going away, and doing the opposite. So it'll be interesting when you're suddenly having to make the game, how Wales will do. So to be honest, I don't totally agree with that viewpoint from Chris Coleman, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll wait and see. I mean, I suppose for some people, what is surprising is that Roy Keane has stayed the pace for such a long time, because he is a very volatile character, isn't he? Yeah. And he's had some very funny press conferences already, but you always think he's on the brink of sort of walking out of it.
Well, I think he's, there's no doubt. You've been a top player. You've got extremely high standards. You leave everything on the pitch, and that's something for the players to aspire to. He's not asking players to do something he never did. And that's a really important point, because sometimes you might have managers talk a good game, but they haven't actually done it or delivered it. Yeah. Now, he might be saying to players, put your bodies on the line, and he can't understand clubs doing that. Well, that's because he's done it his whole career. So, I think he can bring people with him, and I think really important to that is obviously Martin, who's, the calming influence. And obviously the press love having Roy, because they get so much copy out of him for a press conference. And saying that, then you do need a bit of diplomacy, and I think that's where Martin's so important, because look, you don't want a national assistant manager arguing with a club manager, particularly as a bigger club as Everton, who've always produced real good players for Ireland. So you don't really want that. But I feel that was a signal, whether it was right or not. But a signal say, hey, come on, we need everyone. We're not, we need everyone on sort of on board here. And if you're not going to be part of it, then I'll make it public and maybe put you in a position where you're going to have to be in future.
Sure. Absolutely right. David, listen, thank you very much indeed for joining us. David Connolly there, Formula Ireland International. I've got some great news for you here, Porky, by the way. Rick has tweeted to me, and he says, MG, you are allowed booze on jury duty. We had a 1 hour, 30-minute break, and even the judge went for 2 pints every day. And that was at Bradford Crown Court.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, blimey.
The judge will lead you all off to some local Wetherspoons for a couple of pints.
I hope so. And I'm going to show you a picture now, and this picture will cause you great recriminations.
Oh, yeah.
Can you see what that is?
Oh, yes. That's the empty cream section of a supermarket, right?
Which one?
I don't know which one.
I think it says Sainsbury's,
Oh, is
right?
it? Okay.
So I tell you 3 weeks ago that there's going to be a shortage of cream and double cream.
No, it wasn't 3 weeks ago. It was on Friday morning.
What, last Friday morning,
Yeah.
was it?
It was Friday morning.
OK, so I've told you very recently there's going to be an absolute shortage of cream and double cream to put on your Christmas cake.
You've caused a run on the supermarkets.
Excuse me, on your mince pies and on your... What else is it the people eat at Christmas? Christmas cake, mince pies,
Christmas pudding.
Christmas pudding and all this kind of stuff, you know. And the reason is because...
No, you've started a panic. That's what you've done.
No, the milk industry in this country has been running to the ground because farmers simply can't produce it now at an economic price to make a living, so we're losing dairy farmers. That means, with the resources we've got now, we can just about cope with milk delivery. But when it comes to Christmas and people want all this cream and double cream, and there's a huge surge in sales of cream over Christmas, there's going to be a run on it. Now, of course... Old MG here told me, you're spouting nonsense again.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
You said that Ferrero Rocher would be a shortage of, and they were until I raised the alarm.
There was absolute glut. People started sending pictures in of whole huge mountains of Ferrero Rocher.
But what I'm showing you here is it's a cabinet inside a Sainsbury's supermarket, one of the most respected retailers on the high street, and it's empty. It says Sainsbury's extra thick double cream 300 millilitres, £1.20.
Yeah.
It's empty.
But do you know
it's
what
all
that
gone.
might be?
It's gone.
Do you know what that might be?
My prophecy is absolutely right.
Look how happy you are that you've now caused a shortage of cream.
My job is to look after our millions of listeners, and I've been giving them the right information.
Is that right?
Yeah.
When I dance with you, we move like the sea. You're all I want to know.
This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics. We're going to be talking Formula One ahead of the Brazil Grand Prix in the next hour. And, of course, we'll also be hearing from the Porky Sermon. One texter, actually, tweeted, Sharky, says, shouldn't the Porky Sermon be about remembrance on this day of days and for others' sacrifices?
Well,
hashtag lest we forget.
What the sermon is all about is I'm given a text from the Bible and I interpret it.
Yes.
Now, I can interpret on what I think it means. It may have some meaning today on Remembrance Day, just about Remembrance Day.
Yeah.
And I'm a huge supporter. I've probably bought 10 poppies now, I suppose. And I bought, funny enough...
Do you buy them and wear them, though? Because some people just buy them and don't wear them.
Well, I try to do both. What happened on, where was I on Saturday? No, Friday. On Friday I was down on the coast and I was getting the ferry.
Which was actually Armistice Day, wasn't it? Friday.
It was actually, you're absolutely right, the 11th, And I was going down to the ferry and there was a chap there rattling his tin, so I put more money in. And as I was walking, and he gave me a pop, and as I was walking away, he said, excuse me, I said, because I'd given them £4.50 or something, whatever change I had in my pocket. He said, you're very generous, and for that you can have a metal pin.
Yeah.
And I thought he meant, I said, well, I've got a metal pin. He said, no, a metal pin is apparently a metal badge, you know.
Yeah, the pelt. That's what I got this year, because I prefer it smaller rather than wearing a big poppy.
No, mine's bigger, actually, and so I put that on my shirt and all that kind of stuff, and, and it's all great, and I'm a huge supporter of it. My father was in the Royal Navy during the Second World War, but I have now attended about 4 remembrance moments. I went to Goodison Park 2 weeks ago, so that was Everton's last home game before Remembrance Day.
So they had it there
because of the
You're
international
about
break.
A minute silence.
Yeah, that's right. A 2 minute silence, and people walking onto the pitch and all that. Right, no problem at all. And then there was I went to Chelsea.
Yeah.
We had a minute silence there.
Because that was their last home game before this Sunday.
Yeah, I watched the England game, obviously, on Friday night, and I stood up and paid, to attention as respectful.
While you were watching the television?
While I was watching the television, right. And that was the third one. Yeah. At 11 o'clock this morning, I was on a railway station when the train stopped.
Yes.
And I'm good. I'm glad they did, because this is today. It's
important.
It's Remembrance Day, and it stopped. But to be perfectly honest, that's 4 remembrance occasions that I've seen.
Yes.
And I don't understand, why does every football club, and look, I'm not criticising my own club, Everton, because I've been going there all my life, but surely... every team will be able to pay its respects in remembrance if they're at one service, because there are 2 teams in one ground.
Sure.
So why did every club think, we've got to do ours at home before Remembrance Day?
Do you know what it is? I think it's because if they don't do it, then suddenly people criticise them for not thinking about it. And if they said something like, well, we know it was our last home game before Remembrance Sunday, which is 2 weeks from now.
That's right.
But we just thought that it was appropriate to do it.
Yeah.
And it's one of those, I know what you mean, because, I was thinking...
It seems to become an industry.
Well, the 1 minute silence thing's become an industry. I mean, and I'm sure that Leicester City fans would not be unhappy about this, but they had a minute's silence a couple of weeks back.
Who was this?
Leicester City.
Oh, yeah,
because the king of Thailand had died.
Yeah.
Now, I know that
their owners are Thai, aren't they?
And all of that, and so I suppose there's a reason for that. But there does seem to, there doesn't seem to be many games now that don't have a minute's silence for one reason or another.
I know this sounds ridiculous, but I remember a club last season or season before had a 1 minute silence because one of the stewards had died. I mean, that's how ridiculous it's becoming. You can't criticise a 1 minute silence for Remembrance Day, but the number that there have been this year, it's going to start watering it down. People are going to say, well, hang on, which one is this? Is this the real one?
Yeah.
Because of course, there was one on Friday night at the game.
There would have been one at the England rugby game.
There was one during the day on Friday because of the 11th hour on the 11th day and all that kind of stuff. The same thing was repeated at the Rugby International yesterday.
Right.
Same thing repeated today. And what about this for an observation, right? Is this being mean?
I mean, the thing is, people will say you probably can't have enough of them because there's no reason that we shouldn't be remembering all the people that died and fought for the country and all of that.
Yes, well, okay. I would accept it. I just think it's...
You're totally entitled to your opinion.
I think it's becoming an industry, and in any industry where things go on and on, people profit.
Yeah.
And, you have to have support services for an industry. I saw a very touching moment this morning. As I say, I was on the station and they stopped the trains for 2 minutes from pulling into the station, which is great. I was very respectful. I didn't know they still did that, so that was good. But a chap was there, and he was Anzac. So, Australian and New Zealand forces. And he was immaculately dressed, in his black, what you could only call dress suit, I suppose. It wasn't a battle fatigue or anything. But he held to his chest a bush tucker hat. Right. How do I describe it? Is that the sort of...
Well, it's Australian military hat.
Australian military hat with a cord underneath the chin and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And
was he standing on the station?
He was standing on the station, because he was obviously getting a train into town to join in the Remembrance Day services at the Cenotaph. You know. But he was magnificent.
Well, he's a bit late if he was there at 11 o'clock.
No, this was 9 o'clock.
Oh, right.
It's 9 o'clock. I got into town this morning about 10, I think.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and it was quite magnificent to see that, his country is halfway around the world, but, as a world we unify against tyranny and all celebrate.
Listen, I don't disagree with what you're saying, and I think that there will be people who will disagree with it because they'll say, well, it doesn't really matter how many remembrance parades we have or remembrance, moments that we have, because that's the kind of thing that people should be remembering.
Sure.
But anyway, let me read you a couple of tweets
here.
Right,
let's do that.
Here's one from CK, who says, I'm a milk tanker driver, and I can assure you that there is far from a shortage of milk. Mr. Page doesn't say Mr. Page, just says Parry.
Yeah, well, it's not in your milk tanker. There's plenty of milk, pal. Yeah. But there isn't enough milk now to go around to supply milk. And why is the double cream tray at Sainsbury's empty?
I once went into a supermarket on a Sunday afternoon at about 1 o'clock.
Right.
And
they all close at 4 on a Sunday.
They do. And
they let them run down. That's what I always thought to me.
Yes. Well, funnily enough, I was looking for a carton of double cream. Right. Because I was making something that required double cream.
Yes.
And they didn't have any. And I went up to one of the guys standing there, and I said,
"Excuse me,
can you get me some double cream?" He said, "No, we've run out."
Yeah.
I said, "Well, you can't have run out. It's a supermarket.
Exactly.
You go in the back and get some."
Yeah.
He says, "No, we don't restock it if it runs out at this time of the day." So my theory is that because it's Sunday, whoever took that picture, if indeed it was Sunday that you took the picture, they've just run out and they're not restocking it. It doesn't mean there isn't any.
It drives me mad when I go into a supermarket at 3:20 on a Sunday, because normally, if I've been working, we finish at 1 or something like that. I'm going to have a few pints, but I always leave 40 minutes to get to the supermarket before it closes to buy my ingredients, right?
This is what, on a Sunday?
On a Sunday.
Oh, right. Well, you'll be out of luck today, won't you? Because we finish at 4.
Yeah, finish at 4. But I've got them all the ingredients.
Have you?
Got them in, yeah.
Excellent.
And what really bugs me is they've never got any cut and prepared sprouts in a plastic bag. They've all gone.
Sprouts?
Yeah, they've all gone.
Why don't you just cut them yourself?
Well, you don't have to, and the cut and prepared ones are already done.
Yeah.
And you just open them, bang, you bung them into the
boiling
old pan.
water.
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
boil
absolutely.
Them for about 20 minutes.
No, you don't. About 7 or 8 minutes.
7 or 8?
Like crunchy, you see.
Do you like them crunchy?
And it always bugs me.
Have they already been like, how when you see sprouts, they're sometimes cut?
They're quartered.
Yeah, cut.
They're quartered.
Just sort of with a mark in it.
Yeah.
Apparently that's not really necessary. People got very carried away with all that a few years ago, because that can be quite laborious having to do that.
I think it's good.
Why don't you just get frozen ones? You get frozen sprouts.
No, I don't like frozen sprouts.
Really?
No, I don't like frozen food, to be honest. I don't mind frozen fish, but not frozen vegetables. Now, I'm going to ask you a question, which I bet you can't answer.
Okay. Which
manager's in charge of the most expensive team in the world?
The most expensive team in the world in terms of what? The players? How much the players cost?
Yes.
Well, we were talking about Manchester United being the highest paid team, weren't we, a minute ago?
Yes.
The most expensively assembled team, I suppose, is going to be something. Well, I'm thinking it would be somebody like Real Madrid or Manchester City.
It's a trick question,
I'm
in a
sure
way.
it will be.
Do you know why?
Because it will be a team that's somewhere else that I'm not thinking of.
It's Roberto Martinez. because he's the national team manager of Belgium.
Is that right?
And all the world's most expensive players are now Belgians.
Really?
Yeah, well, Kevin De Bruyne.
Right. Yeah. Romelu Lukaku. He wasn't that expensive.
Well, he was pretty expensive, and you add them all up. And
Eden Hazard.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
And Alphonse Courtois, the Chelsea goalkeeper.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Under the manager's gaze, Kevin De Bruyne, Eden Hazard, and Thierry Henry, is their assistant coach and all that. But Roberto Martinez has had this magical transformation. Yeah. He was booted out of Everton.
Right.
I mean, quite...
For really not being particularly good.
Well, and quite brutally, really. Yeah. 1 minute he was a manager, the
Yeah.
next minute he disappeared from sight.
Right.
And next minute he'd gone. I think
But he had a couple of very poor seasons, didn't he?
Well, he had one poor... Yeah, he did, yeah. 2 poor seasons, you're right, yeah. And now he's in charge of the Belgian team. His last 3 results, I've just looked it up, have been beating Cyprus 3-0, beating Bosnia 4-0 and beating Gibraltar 5-0.
OK. Well, that's not bad. 3 wins.
Well, yeah, but...
Played 3, won 3. I wish that we could say the same about Gareth Southgate.
Well, yeah, I suppose you've been a bit more impressive in the victories.
Yeah.
But I found that amazing.
Well, I think everybody was a bit surprised when he got that job. But the other thing about Belgium is that every time we see a FIFA chart of, best teams and world rankings and all that, they're always up there as like number 2 or 3 because it's based on some of their results. Whenever they've been at a World Cup or a Euros, they always seem to disappoint, don't they?
The Belgians, yeah, they do.
And you can't see Martinez suddenly making them into some super team.
No. The players in Belgium come from Manchester United, Manchester City, Chelsea, Liverpool, Tottenham in the Premier League.
Right.
And elsewhere, Atletico Madrid, Zenit St. Petersburg, Napoli and Parry Saint-Germain. So all those clubs, even if they're not hugely successful in European
pretty
football...
wealthy.
Absolutely. Zenit St. Petersburg, Paris Saint-Germain and Atletico Madrid can attract big players. Atletico Madrid, I was reading somewhere, now almost have as much finance as Real Madrid because the Spanish authorities...
because they're sharing the wealth.
Exactly. Used to give all the money to Real Madrid and Barcelona, but Atletico Madrid have now proved themselves to be such a formidable outfit, a formidable club.
Well, it's now the top 3, really, isn't it, rather than the top 2.
Exactly. They're getting a share of the money.
Now, I've got a great tweet here from Pete, who sent this in earlier. He says, I've just ordered my £13.49 or possibly £30.99 Two Mics DVD.
Good.
The thrill of not knowing which show I might get is tremendous. Because there was a bit of a cock-up, wasn't there?
Well, it was my fault, because what happened was...
It was your fault?
Yeah, it was my fault, because...
You're actually feeling all right?
Well, I went down to the distributors, which are in a...
You don't have to say where they are.
They're in Stockbroker Belt, right? Yeah. And they receive a shipment from Belgium, where they...
From Belgium?
Yes.
There you go.
In Belgium, that's right. We've just been talking about Belgium, where they're pressed. Anyway, I went down to see him last week, and I said the shipment's coming in on Friday, because they were shipped from Belgium on Wednesday. And they said, thank you very much indeed. However, our marketeers, then decided to issue a pre-order announcement.
Right.
And this is nothing to do with you and I. We're not marketeers and we're not distributors.
Certainly not.
It's nothing to do with us.
Heaven forbid.
But then I should have made it clear when I went to see the distributors that the marketeers had issued a pre-order form. So when the pre-order forms came in, the new DVDs weren't in the warehouse.
Right. So they sent out the old ones.
Exactly. The computer just, started pushing out DVDs because there's a few left from last year, So we're really sorry about that, and I can promise you, if you've had one...
But the good news is they can keep it, right?
You can keep it, of course you can, because what we're doing is the list has been recalled, and we start again tomorrow morning. And by the way, if you've ordered them over the weekend, you'll get the proper one, and everybody who has ordered one will get a new one. So we're sorry about.
And pretty much everyone who's ordered one since I think Friday, will get the right one.
Of course they will, and everybody will get the right one as well. And as for the price mess, I'm sorry about that.
This is the first cock up.
No,
this is another cock up on your front.
For some reason, the marketeers double priced the package and postage.
Yeah.
What's it called? Postage and packing.
Yes.
And so I'm afraid it accumulated.
No wonder you're not in charge of it.
Well, I'm not in charge of it. I'm just being told how these things happen. £13.49 is the cost of it. Not a penny more, not a penny less.
Yes.
That was a famous novel written by Geoffrey Archer.
That's indeed right. Now, here's one from Mark who says, Mr. Parry doesn't like minute silences. It means he has to keep his big mouth shut.
Well, that's very nice, isn't it? I was one of the few who kept his mouth shut for 2 minutes on the station in Surrey this morning.
Well, you mean people were talking?
Well, they had kids who were running around, all this kind of stuff. You can't tell a little kid of 8
it's difficult, that.
To be quiet. Yeah.
And also, if you start telling them to be quiet, you're then making more noise than they are.
Exactly,
So that's the problem. Good afternoon, I'm Mike Graham, he's Mike Parry, you're listening to the Two Mikes on Talk Sport. Coming up in this hour, we're going to look ahead to that Brazil Grand Prix, we're going to talk to Todd McCandless, and of course, it's going to be time for the Porky Sermon as well, so stay tuned if you need some spiritual guidance to keep you going for the rest of the afternoon. And we'll get the result of Heroes and Villains as well, which we did in the last hour. You're listening to the Two Mikes with me, Mike Graham, and Mike Parry on Talk Sport. Talk Sport. There will, of course, be a podcast coming out a little bit later on, and as you would have heard, you can now get a DVD of our trip to Edinburgh at the festival this year, and also there's a few podcasts and things knocking around.
Yes.
If you check the twomikes.co.uk, you'll find out where to get everything.
That is our website, which in itself has been massively updated quite soon.
It will be, yeah.
Believe it or not.
That's another one of your projects, isn't it?
It is, yeah. People in
Munich.
Munich.
Sure you're not taking on too much?
I don't know. People in Munich are rebuilding a website for us, and it's going to be...
Why Munich, by the way?
The guys are based there. They're Americans, and they run. They put up websites for media organisations and sporting organisations all around the world. And they contacted me literally and said, they listen to us all the time over there, and could they help? So
yeah, to be fair, our website does need a revamp. It's not very good, is it?
It needs a revamp, but thank you to everybody who's worked on it so far. But just needs taking up. Now I want to tell you about some. By the way, I love the cover of the new DVD.
Yeah,
it's
good,
yellow.
Yeah,
it's the blue sky of Edinburgh and Edinburgh Castle, and then there's old MG
Which
and myself.
A lot of people actually doubted. They said, don't believe that is ever the colour of the sky at Edinburgh. But the whole 3 days we were there,
it was beautiful.
It was gorgeous, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was beautiful. And we decided on a yellow contrasting title. And it looks great. Yes. So anyway, look, I hope you're going to enjoy it enormously. Now, I want to tell you about some sensational football action yesterday, okay?
Okay, go on.
Because, of course, there was no Premiership around, no Championship and all that kind of stuff. However, in the Vanarama National League, my hometown team, Chester, went to Tranmere, so that was the big derby of the day.
That's quite a big local sort of rivalry, isn't it?
Big local rivalry.
Yeah.
Can I tell you what the crowd was for a non-league game?
Yeah, go on.
7,790.
Wow, that's pretty good.
I mean, that was bigger than most crowds in League One.
Was it?
Yeah.
Right.
And I
bet it wasn't too expensive.
And certainly
either.
bigger than any crowd in League Two.
It probably wasn't too expensive.
No, exactly.
Like that.
Anyway, Tranmere raced into a 2-goal lead before half-time, 2-0, but the mighty Chester came back and scored in the 50th minute, and then equalised, lad called Astles in the 90th minute.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, incredible. When was the last time you saw Chester play?
Well, I haven't seen them play.
You tried to save them, didn't you?
I did try to save them, yeah. They went bankrupt, unfortunately. But anyway, that's not the only good news in the Vanarama National League. 7,000 crowd and all that. Well, what happened was the last... I'm gloating here. The last fixture in the list of fixtures, Wrexham 0, Braintree 1... which means the mighty Chester have leapt ahead of Wrexham in the table.
Really?
Yes.
So does that mean they're possibly destined to return to the Football League then?
Well, they're not that far up. They're only halfway up.
Oh,
but, I mean, what a magnificent attendance. 7,709. That's nearly 8,000 people. Yeah. My God.
Well, let's hope you haven't jinxed them now that you've given them a big hello on the radio station.
No, I haven't jinxed them at all.
Because Razvan says this is an interesting question at the Two Mikes. What's happened to Porky? He provides accurate info, takes responsibility for his blunders, doesn't slag old MG like he used to.
Yeah.
I think it might be him preparing for being the Secret Truth and Justice at the Croydon Crown Court jury.
Could be something to do with that. I'm getting all these sort of messages saying, Porky, you've said too much already. You're up for contempt of court in the morning. I hope not. I haven't said anything that I shouldn't have said.
The only thing that would
you don't get any guidelines on this,
The one thing that would be worse than doing jury duty and getting stuck with a case for months on end would be actually getting locked up. Because that would definitely have a deleterious effect on our partnership.
I think I'd prefer to be locked up, to be honest. But anyway.
David says this, the DVD setup sounds like an Alpha Daily operation. I hope there's no virus on board.
To be honest, it's not. We honestly, we deal with very professional people and they're very good. It's just me, really lacking the ability to place the right information to the right people, that was all. But it's not a problem at all. It's all there and it'll be sorted.
Now, would you like to put a jinx on Lewis Hamilton for this afternoon?
Certainly not. I hope he wins. He's got pole position over
Nico Rosberg.
Yeah. And it would be... I don't think he can win it now, though. I don't think he can win the title. If Rosberg...
Well, stranger things have happened.
If Rosberg wins today, he wins the title. Yeah. If Rosberg comes second today, he almost certainly wins the title.
Was it 2 years ago that it went right down to, like, the final bend? Do you remember? And was when Hamilton won it? In the final race of the season.
Well, when Hamilton won it the first time, which was 8 or 9 years ago now. It was 8 years ago, was it? Yeah, I think it might be 8 years ago. And he was a very young man.
Yeah.
He didn't even know he'd won it till he got out of the car.
Right.
Because the situation on the last bend of the last race was such that nobody could work out the maths of who'd
But was there not one more recently than that where he literally just went round someone on the last bend because something happened that was unexpected?
Well,
and he won it.
We've got one of our F1 experts coming on shortly, haven't we? So he'll
Todd
outline that
McCandless.
all to us.
He can tell us.
Now, the other great news is, if I can get up to Goodison next Saturday, which I can't because we're working here, obviously, and that's, our prime responsibility in life is to entertain our millions of listeners on the warm-up on Saturday morning, which we'll be back to do next Saturday.
Yes.
Had I been able to get there, it's Everton versus Swansea.
Bobcat Bob.
Bobcat Bob's got to be on Merseyside. He's going to be pushing that envelope.
You think the Runcorn train station's going to be on his radar?
I was going to say, yeah. As you're passing through Runcorn Station, Bob, I give you a wave from the platform. Okay.
Now, poor old Bobcat Bob, though, has had his odds slashed of being the next manager to be sacked in the Premier League. Because he's only had, 4 games and he hasn't won one yet?
He hasn't won one yet, no.
And I don't think he's going to win at Goodison,
Well, I hope he's not going to win at Goodison. If he is, I mean, Everton's got a rebuilding job to do after, funny enough, that's it's interesting. It says, Porky talked about a 1 minute, this is from Mark, he's a Spurs fan. Yeah. Porky talked about a 1 minute silence at Stamford Bridge. Wasn't it a 90-minute silence for Porky as he got hammered 5-0 by Chelsea?
Yeah, that's
very
true.
unkind.
Or possibly just hammered.
Yes.
And what about Koeman, by the way, who came out over the weekend and said that he wants Memphis Depay to come and play for Everton? I didn't quite understand that because apparently he's under contract at Man United until 2019.
Yeah, I think he is. But I mean, are they talking about a loan or something?
Well, I don't know.
I don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
But Mr. Koeman
he's going to fill the place with Dutchman.
Has been quite vocal, hasn't he, in his demands now for a winter break.
Yes.
In his demands for club versus country debate, and he clearly believes club is more important than country, which of course any fan does. But I think it's quite interesting that Mr. Mashiri, who's the new owner of Everton, and I think he's only been to one home game. That's what I was told when I was there a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
Nevertheless, very, very quickly after the Chelsea debacle, because that's all you can describe it as, really.
It wasn't good.
Issued a vote of confidence in the manager. And it's all very well saying, the famous vote of confidence for the chairman. He's not the chairman. Mr. Mashiri's the owner.
Right.
And he realised, I'm sure, at the start of the season, this was not going to be a one-season job, maybe even not a two-season job.
But he's going to have to start spending a bit more money, isn't he?
Well, I think he was actually quite disappointed at the end of the last transfer window that the powers that be at Everton hadn't spent more of his money rather than less, you know what I mean? Because I think he had his eye on a few players, as owners do. But I think at the same time as putting money available for rebuilding the team, they are very intently serious on a site in Liverpool. I think it's up the coast, it's just round the Mersey a bit.
Right.
I don't
so
exactly
what happened
know
to the old ground? Will they sell it? I mean, sell it for developing.
Yeah, eventually, but I mean, with the greatest will in the world, you're not going to be able to build, £2 million flats on the site of Goodison Park.
No.
I mean, there are flats of that cost that much on, in the Albert Dock, right on the front.
Yeah.
Near the Live building and all that kind of stuff. And Liverpool, I believe, to be a thriving city. When I go there, you feel it in the air. But quite frankly, nobody wants to travel down Scotland Road or County Road and go and live, where Goodison Park is now. So, but I imagine it will become like a supermarket.
But you're talking sort of 10 years hence, really.
Yeah, you are. Yeah.
Quite a long way off. Now, here's one from Mark, who's in Lincoln. He says, Porky's talking utter garbage. The only reason Tranmere had 7,000 plus was because Liverpool and Everton weren't playing, which could be true.
Yeah. So what?
Well, so it's not because they've got that support, it's just because that was the only game around.
Hang on, there's plenty of weekends when Everton play, for instance, on a Sunday afternoon, and Liverpool might be playing on a Monday night, or it might be, an early game on Merseyside or something. No, that's not the case at all. The attraction was the mighty Chester.
Is that right?
Going to Tranmere. And you've got to remember, the history between the two is enormous. Tranmere, of course, Dixie Dean's first club.
Yes, and here's one who says, what's the Chester FC chant, Porky? This is David. Is it Chester, Chester, do your very bester?
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, do your best there, Chester.
Could be stirring you into action, Mr. Parry, because you've got something to tell us about Rasputin later, haven't you?
Well, it's just I've been sent another book. I review books apart from anything else as well. I'm a book reviewer. And
I don't know where you find the time to do it.
I don't know where I find it to do it, but somebody sent me a new book called Rasputin, and it's about Rasputin, funnily enough.
Well, it would be, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. and it's, got loads more information about his Rogerisation experiences and was prolific.
That was pretty much all he did,
wasn't it? Yeah. So it's about all he did. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll get to that a little bit later on.
Indeed,
because we're going to talk to Todd McCandless ahead of the Brazil Grand Prix.
Yeah.
It's the last chance for Lewis Hamilton to save his chance of actually winning the thing this year. Not the last chance, but I mean, if he doesn't do it today, then he's done. Let's talk to Todd and find out precisely what we can expect. Todd, a very good afternoon to you.
Mike, how are you?
Yeah,
very well indeed, thank you.
Very well. I think he was talking to me, actually. There.
Yeah, well, he was talking to us both, because we're both called Mike.
We are both called Mike. Todd, welcome to the show. This couldn't be more tense, I suppose. You know, he's got pole position, Lewis Hamilton, but he's got to watch over his shoulder continually, and got to hope that Nico Rosberg somehow trails behind him quite a long way.
Yeah, it's exactly right. He starts from pole. He has to win the final two races. He's got to win today, and he's got to win in Abu Dhabi. Now, Nico Rosberg, current championship leader, he has to finish second in the final two races to secure the title. So, it's all to play for. But here's the exciting thing. If you are a Lewis Hamilton fan, it is currently raining in Brazil.
Yeah.
Right.
And he is an incredible rain driver,
right.
as we know. Nico Rosberg, not as much. You'll recall back at Monaco this year, Nico was asked to pull over. His pace was so far off in the wet to let Lewis through. So this isn't optimum conditions for Nico, but it certainly is for Lewis, and he starts from pole. He's in the catbird seat.
So you're saying Nico Rosberg could drop back quite a few places if it rains because he's a poor wet driver?
Yeah, he's not known to be a super great wet weather driver. That's right. And
I see.
If he falls back, he's got a guy right behind him, Kimi Räikkönen, who is good in the rain. He's also got 19-year-old Max Verstappen, who's storming forward on the F1 grid. And if Nico loses and finishes behind third place, fourth place, well, it's anyone's game.
It's all to play for,
right.
Sure.
And what about, I mean, I know they've had some problems with team orders and radios and all sorts of things throughout the season. I mean, will team orders come into this race at all, or is it all bets are off?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think Mercedes realized, look, there's 19 points to play between the two drivers at this point. They don't want to interfere with that championship. I don't suspect team orders will come in. Now, there was some controversy, Mike, this week as Mercedes boss Toto Wolff had made a call to Max Verstappen's father, Jos Verstappen, and asked Jos to make sure that his son didn't interfere with his two championship leaders. And that didn't go over well in the paddock. And even Lewis Hamilton says, hey, look, I'd be happy if Max mixed it up with Nico. That would help me.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, I mean, isn't there some kind of ethical problem with doing something like that? Is there not some rule against doing that?
Yeah, there's no rule against it, but I can tell you that it was frowned upon, and certainly Red Bull boss Christian Horner, he thought it was rubbish, not happy about it.
Todd, do you think there will be a reshuffle in the team, in the Mercedes team, if Rosberg gets this one? Because if there's one thing that Lewis Hamilton likes to be, it's unbeatable number one. And if he's in that team next year with Nico Rosberg, Rosberg will be the star because he'll be the world champion if he wins the title.
He will be, but I don't suspect there will be a shuffle. Both drivers still have time on their contract. Yep. Mercedes, the most dominant car on that grid. Lewis knows that if he's going to win more titles, his best chance is at Mercedes, not at another team. You look at Fernando Alonso at McLaren, not doing very well. No. Yeah. But I think they're going to absolutely be there. Also, keep in mind that this year is not indicative of Lewis Hamilton. He suffered a lot of mechanical and reliability failure early in the season.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think we're not seeing the best Lewis, and it's not necessarily because of Lewis.
Okay, so really, you've answered my next question now. Is the Mercedes domination like it's gone for another couple of seasons? Because these things are very cyclical, aren't they? Very cyclical, I should say. Ferrari have 5 good years, and then McLaren have 5 good years, and then Mercedes have 5 good years.
They absolutely are, and that's down to the regulations. Every time they change the formula or the format, the regulations, certain teams excel, others don't. Yeah. Currently, Mercedes has dominated this hybrid-powered regulation. However, Mike, it is all set to change next year. 2017, all new chassis, fatter, wider tires, less downforce. It's all to play for next season. So if there is a possible chink in the armor, it could be this radical regulation change for next season.
And one thing as well we're going to look forward to, and Mike mentioned this a few weeks ago, Lance Stroll is going to be the new young sort of wonder kid on the circuit. What do you know about him? What do you make of the nepotism that has put him there?
Well, yeah, certainly there's some criticism. Lance Stroll's father, a very wealthy person. A lot of people say, well, Lance, he's a pay driver. His father bought his way to Formula One. I don't think that's necessarily fair. Lance Stroll's done very well in the junior series. He's won the championship that he was just in this season. He's a very, very tidy driver, a great driver. Is he another Max Verstappen? Well, we'll have to wait and see. But look, most of those young drivers are all paying drivers. We think of Pastor Maldonado, who was, rumored to be bringing $40 million from PDVSA out of South America. So, they're all paying drivers. Senna paid for a seat in his climb to Formula One. I think it's great to bring him in. Williams, they need that. They'll have Valtteri Bottas as the veteran. And this is also a big weekend. Speaking of Williams and Lance Stroll, he's taking the seat of Felipe Massa, a Brazilian. And it's a very emotional weekend for Felipe as he's retiring. And this is his final Brazilian Grand Prix.
Mm-hmm. Excellent stuff. We'll be looking forward to it this afternoon.
Indeed.
Todd, thank you very much indeed. Todd McCandless there telling us all about why Lewis Hamilton needs to win. And if it is wet, presumably he does have more chance. He quite likes driving in the rain.
Yeah, he's a very good wet driver, apparently, isn't he?
But I wonder if it is wet, whether there will be one of those incidents that just kind of blows his race.
Well, either that
or he's had a lot of them.
Either that or because the safety car comes on so often when it's wet, because cars skid off and all that kind of stuff, it just sort of negates the whole race, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that Hamilton's in front as well in the wet means that if the safety car comes on, it's to his advantage because more laps, are knocked off the sort of total, if you see what I mean, when they're just trailing round, and that's definitely to the advantage of the guy at the front.
Yeah, indeed. So, we'll be watching it from 4:00. And,
indeed.
You'll be hearing it all here, of course, updates, I think, from Graham Courtney.
Now, you want to hear about Rasputin,
I want to hear about Rasputin,
no, this is great, this new book, honestly. I mean, first of all, we always knew that Rasputin was a sort of...
He had a bit of an appetite, didn't he?
Well, yeah, I mean, he was a peasant living in Siberia, and he did go on the road. Do you remember old Chang, or whatever his name was? Yeah, in Kung Fu.
Oh, yeah.
Was his name Chang?
David Carradine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember what his name was.
Chang.
Grasshopper he used to be called, didn't he?
No, Grasshopper when he was little in the Buddhist monk monastery where he was learning all his Kung Fu.
Right.
But his name was Chang, and he literally wandered the earth trying to convert people to, Buddhism.
Although he just wandered the earth, I think.
Yeah,
I don't think he actually had a purpose. He just always got himself into trouble.
Anyway,
everywhere he went.
That's right, yeah. Anyway, Rasputin wandered the earth, from his Siberian peasantry. He was a pilgrim, traipsing from place to place in search of spiritual wisdom and to give out spiritual wisdom. And a guy who ran the theological seminary in St. Petersburg, which is then the capital of Russia, not Moscow, took him into his house after, he was a very gullible man, this guy. Yeah. And it was full of saloniers.
Saloniers?
Favourites with the royal court.
Oh, I see, right, yeah.
And eventually he got to know the Empress herself. And, of course, the famous story is that her son Alexis, he had some terrible illness, and Rasputin walked into the room, and picked the boy up, mumbled a few words of mumbo-jumbo, and the boy got better. So they thought he was like...
So they thought he had some kind of healing power.
Yeah, some kind of healing power. But where it all went wrong, and this is the bit I really like, where it all went wrong for Rasputin...
Where it all went wrong for Rasputin. Only on this show would you hear this kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's right, yeah. There was a restaurant called the Yar Restaurant in Moscow. Okay?
Yar?
Yar, Y-A-R,
Yar.
Okay, Yar,
like those people in West London.
And,
okay, Yar.
And this book looks into the quite famous tale, although I always find it funny when I read it. Rasputin being in this restaurant, completely kale-eyed, completely
puzzled,
bladderated, to the extent where he comes.
Well, were they drinking vodka in those days, or were they drinking wine or something?
No, you used to drink vodka by the cupful, not the glassful, like a Western measure. I mean, this is by the cupful. So he's slewing all this down, and then he starts telling everybody how many times he's Rogerized the Empress. You know what I mean?
Dear.
And as this night goes on, people say they don't believe him. He says, "Well, she's told me I've got the biggest manhood that she's ever seen."
Dear me!
He then gets
on a family show, you know.
Yeah, it's a family show. He then gets on the table and takes his trousers down to demonstrate this, and then starts, acting in a really despicable way. Described from the ancient testaments as, what you would today call flashing.
Right.
He's flashing about, jumping from table to table.
And this was a busy bar, restaurant, presumably at the time?
Well, this is St. Petersburg's top restaurant, and all the top people are there, right? Now, it's like doing it in the Savoy Hotel, you know what I mean?
Right.
Anyway.
Which you would never want to do.
No, which you'd never want to do. Anyway, one of the guys in the restaurant that night was the British diplomat, Robert Bruce Lockhart.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you've heard of. He's like a famous...
Robert Bruce Lockhart.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have, actually.
Yeah,
So it rings a bell.
Yeah, I think one of his descendants became a very famous journalist or something. Robert Bruce Lockhart. And as a result, of course, Bruce Lockhart had to report back to England, you know. Not sure who this guy is, but he seems to have an enormous amount of influence over the Empress and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. And that's when the world first became aware of him. Now, the problem was, by this time, did you ever see that Billy Connolly drama where he was Mr. Brown to Queen Victoria?
About Queen Victoria, yes.
And you remember in the end, because he became so confident of his relationship with the Queen...
Yeah.
Everybody suddenly decided you're bad news. Yeah. Because if she's listening to you, she's not listening to us.
Plotting against him.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly what happened to Rasputin, okay?
Yeah.
Because he became more and more confident of his ability to influence the Queen and then was openly bragging about their relationship.
Right.
It was not good on two counts.
Well, this is why being indiscreet is never a good thing, right?
Exactly, yeah. So by this time, he'd been beatified, apparently, by somebody in Russia, so he was a saint. So you weren't allowed to kill him, except that his detractors decided that it didn't matter. And they employed a number of executioners to kill him.
Right.
And
was he finally executed? Is that how he met his end?
Yeah.
It's in the time, by the way.
He was finally executed by stabbing, poison, drowning, and eventually somebody claims they literally put a stake through his heart to get rid of him.
They beatified with sticks.
Yeah, it wasn't a good end.
No.
But then again, you know, you shouldn't go around boasting about your sexual conquest, should you?
Well, you shouldn't go around boasting about anything, really.
Especially if your main sexual conquest just happens to be the Queen of Russia.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Now, here's a bit of interesting, fascinating information for you. John behind the glass there was in Mrs. Brown, he tells me.
What?
As an extra.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Not John the producer.
Oh, really? Oh, that's excellent. Yeah, brilliant.
You're impressed now, aren't you?
Yeah. Oh, I'm very impressed indeed.
Excellent.
I mean, the scene where he got completely bladderated and ended up in the stalls in the stables, and they just beat him nearly to death, didn't they?
They did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't
Bad
like
news.
him.
Bad news indeed. How about this for a thought from David? What if Nico Rosberg accidentally takes out Lewis Hamilton? Game over. He's the world champion.
Yeah.
I mean, that could happen.
It's happened before.
Yeah.
It's happened in a Schumacher situation with Damien Hill, isn't it?
Damon Hill.
Damon Hill, sorry, yeah.
Did it?
I'm just trying to remember which way round it was.
No.
It wasn't for the World Championship on that day, but I think it was the penultimate race.
Yeah. But for this
or
one,
something.
that could absolutely be the case. Or somebody who doesn't like Lewis Hamilton takes him out and Nico Rosberg's the champion.
I'll tell you what, you would have to be ruthlessly ambitious to decide that's what I'm going to do today.
Yeah.
Because you're right, if it happens, and even if Rosberg was, I don't know, do you get fined? You don't get points deducted, do you?
Well, it wouldn't have to be. Well, I mean, it doesn't really matter, does it? If Rosberg doesn't finish the race and Hamilton doesn't finish the race, he wins.
That's what I mean. But, I mean, you can be charged with reckless driving and endangering a fellow racer or something like that.
I think he's far enough ahead, isn't he?
No, he's not. No, this is the point. If he had points taken off him, that would devastate Rosberg's challenge. But normally, they just add, times onto that particular race, don't they?
Yes, very possibly so.
Yeah.
Well, it'll be fascinating to see.
It will be.
Anyway, do you want to know what the result of Heroes and Villains is?
Well, I know you've been withholding it, so
I haven't got it yet.
Yes.
I'm just about to be told what it is, because John, the producer, is going to whisper in my ear, I think.
Why doesn't he tell us both at the same time? Has he whispered in your ear?
He just has. He says he was going to give it to you.
I knew
until you mentioned Richard Scudamore.
Why?
And then he decided that was so awful that he's given it to me.
Yeah, well, that's ridiculous.
Sorry about that.
It's absolutely ridiculous. I tell you what, we're going to have to up the quality of,
you want to get him sacked now?
Of talent in this place. You know what I mean?
You're so horrendous about the people that work with us. Now, how about the Porky Sermon? I think it's time.
Okay.
Today's reading is taken from the book of Joshua.
Joshua, I know it well.
Chapter 1.
Chapter 1,
verse 8.
Yes, I know it, yeah.
This book of the law shall not depart out of thy mouth, but thou shalt meditate therein day and night, that thou mayest observe to do according to all that is written therein. For then thou shalt make thy way prosperous, and then thou shalt have good success. Here endeth the lesson.
Okay, yeah, I know what this is about.
So what do you think that's about?
Right, I'll tell you how this interprets. What this means is that actually you can be in touch with the Almighty, wherever your Almighty is, because we're a multi-denominational country, you know what I mean? Anywhere, at any time of the day, night or day, in any situation. So you could be on the bus, and you could be on the upper deck of the bus, and you could be watching all the shops go by, Woolworths and all that kind of stuff, you know what I mean?
Well, not Woolworths anymore.
And not Woolworths, because it's not around anymore, actually. That's true. You'd be in a time warp if it was Woolworths, yeah. But, and you can be thinking to yourself, right, I really want to sort of praise the Lord for this or that or the rest, or I want to ask the Lord to help in this situation, or just come back from hospital and your friend's ill and you want to say a prayer to help your friend get better, or tomorrow, your niece or your nephew or your children are taking an exam, you want to offer up a prayer to help them get through it or something like that, okay? And what it really means is that, worship to the Almighty, whoever your Almighty is, doesn't have to be a physical thing. You don't have to go into church.
Okay.
Now, that's a good thing, because a report issued this morning by the Church of England says that attendances are at the lowest for nearly 30 years.
I'm not surprised.
And in the last
why would you
25
go to church
years...
when you could listen to the Porky Sermon?
Well, exactly. In the last 20 years, something like 1 in 7 people who attended church over 20 years ago don't bother going anymore, which is a big problem. Now, I've been thinking about this deeply, and funny you should read this passage from Joshua 1:8, because it's something that I have related to in the past. And that is... And funny enough, I think we mentioned this just the other day for some unknown reason. Nobody ever uses phone boxes anymore, do they?
No.
I don't even know why they're around.
No. Well, all they are seemingly filled with these days are, cards for various services.
Very
which you might wish
disgraceful
to,
and all that. Now,
use at some point.
I first raised this a couple of years ago on a show with you. I don't know why phone boxes cannot become multi-denominational places of worship.
What, in
for
a phone
people.
box?
Yes.
Well, the way things are going to Church of England, they could all have their services in there.
Well, no, I'm absolutely serious, because, look, when people go into a Catholic church, there's all those boxes that they go into, their confessional box, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And but why do you have to go into a church? Why do you have to seek out a church?
What, you mean you could do confession over the phone?
No. You can go into the box, and that would be your confessional box.
Well, who would you talk to, though?
Well, you talk to the Almighty, because obviously when you talk to the Almighty, it's a spiritual thing. It's not, when you're in the confessional box, you're talking to a priest on the other side of the screen.
Who's a representative of the Almighty.
Representative of the Almighty, I agree. But in effect, the person you are seeking solace and comfort and succour and encouragement from is the Almighty person.
Yes.
The priest is, in fact, just the middleman.
He is. That's true.
Even if it's the Pope.
And also, if you know him...
Even if it's the Pope.
When I was growing up, I always found it slightly discomforting, because I knew that he knew who I was.
Yes.
And I thought, well, I don't want you knowing what I'm supposed to be confessing to.
Yeah, I mean, do you remember in Peaky Blinders when Aunt... it wasn't Polly, was it? Aunt...
What, you mean his sister?
Yeah. No, it wasn't his... That's not his sister, is it, though? That is his aunt, isn't it?
No, it's his sister.
Oh, his sister, that's right, yeah.
Where she stabs the guy.
Well, no, not that. She got so bladderated, she went into a confession box and then told the wicked priest on the other side that Tommy was going to sort him out.
Yeah, right.
Inadvertently, because she didn't know the wicked priest was on the other side.
Well, he was a particularly wicked priest.
He was a particularly wicked priest, yeah. So that's what this is all about, okay? The line's about to do according to all that is written therein, for then thou shalt make the way prosperous, and then thou shalt have good success. Means, you don't have to go and find a church. Churches are big things. There's not a lot of them about. Because
There's
Sorry?
There's loads of them about.
Yeah, but they're not always open anymore. They close them.
True.
There's one down in Stockbroke, Surrey, which I pass when I'm walking sometimes, and I eat my fish and chips in the graveyard. Because it's very calm and peaceful, you know what I mean?
I'm sure.
And sometimes I feel like I should go in and say a prayer of thanks for the Lord allowing me, the expanse and the space of his land, his domain, to eat my fish and chips.
Excellent.
And the problem is, it's never open anymore because all these ne'er-do-gooders, these filthy people
Deadbeats.
come along and desecrate the church. They nick things out of it and all that kind of stuff. So that's what that's all about. Joshua 1:8. Yes, don't worry. Your Almighty is available to you anytime, any day, anywhere, any place.
Just pop into a phone box nearby. That was the Porky Sermon. This is TalkSport. Daniel's not very happy with our sort of our scenario, which we said would happen. What would happen if Nico crashes into Lewis Hamilton? Yeah. He says if Nico drives into Lewis, it doesn't win him the title today. Work it out, you planks.
No, there's one more to go.
Yeah.
But
doesn't that make it? I mean, if
I think it does win it for him because there's only a set number of points going, one race left. Well, no, I suppose if Nico Rosberg spun out in the last race, if Nico Rosberg spun out and Hamilton won, then he could take the title, couldn't he?
Yes, I would have thought so.
Yeah.
But if it's that wet that they're going to start buying a safety car, I suppose it's advantageous to Lewis, as you've said, because it will mean that they can't have some kind of mad scramble.
It's just a procession, isn't it?
Off the grid, which ends up with one of them spinning off.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now then, what was I going to talk to you about? I've got a great plan.
Have you?
You know, for our new website.
Okay. I'm not sure I like the sound of this already.
No, it is a good plan.
Are you sure?
And I think it's too late to do it for Christmas now.
Right.
But funnily enough, somebody mentioned to me, why don't the retailers, like we mentioned Sainsbury's before, and Tesco's, Morrison's, why don't they sell hot cross buns at Christmas?
Yeah. Well, because they're not for Christmas, are they? For Easter.
But people love hot cross buns. Don't you like a hot cross bun?
Well, you can buy sort of...
It's a toasted tea cake,
really.
You can buy
toasted tea cakes all year round, can't you? But they just don't have the cross on them.
I thought we could actually, as a sort of launch for our retail outlet on the website...
start making hot cross buns.
The 2 Mike's hot cross buns for Easter.
Have you gone mad?
No.
Why?
No. Why not?
Like the Porky Resurrection?
No.
Why would you want to start selling hot cross buns?
I think it'd be great.
You've gone mad.
No, I think...
You've become obsessed with the retail business,
No.
What next? Why don't we just do mince pies for Christmas?
Maybe, but I think it's too late now, you see. I think we haven't got our ducks in a row.
Well, what are you going to do?
I don't know where we could source millions of mince pies right now because they're probably all sourced.
Well, yeah, but you can't just buy a load of mince pies and resell them on a website.
No. You've got a manufacturer to make them for you, and they would have, like our faces in the top of the mince pie. No,
you definitely have gone mad.
No, don't you see what I mean?
Yeah, but why would anybody want to buy a mince pie with your face on it?
Well, it'd be our faces. It'd be like the 2 Mike's logo, wouldn't it?
Well, you have to buy 2 of them, sure.
No, because actually we quite like the new picture, don't we? That goes out on whatever account it is. You know what I mean? The black and white one.
The black and white picture, yes.
And you can easily, hot cross buns come in cellophane packets.
Not always.
Well, sometimes.
Depends where you buy them from.
And
I used to make hot cross buns when I worked in
the bakery.
Louis' Patisserie.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I used to work in a bakery as well in Chester. Yeah,
You never told me that before.
I drove the baker's van.
Oh, right.
But I got banned from driving it because I backed it through a woman's fence while she was sunbathing on the grass.
What?
By mistake. I was trying to turn around.
Well, you ran her over?
No, I didn't run her over. I smashed through a fence and crushed all the plants and everything. But, it was an accident. But
I guess you didn't have any sensors in those days.
Didn't have any sensors in those days. But I just think that we've got to expand our minds into the possibilities of what we can,
Well, yeah, but I mean, you don't want to just make, you've become obsessed with this business of ours, right? Which means that, we're going to be, I mean, if you're going to start making mince pies and hot cross buns, I mean, what next? I mean, there's already a plan for Porky scratchings, isn't there?
What about a clothing range?
A clothing range? What, like Pierre Cardin, that sort of thing?
By the way, I took a picture of a bloke at Waterloo Station yesterday wearing, you won't believe it, in pouring rain, flip-flops.
Flip-flops.
Yeah. And
actually, in pouring rain, sometimes that's the best thing to do because you ruin your shoes otherwise.
Yeah, well, it was freezing cold. And the only reason I haven't put it out is because I took the picture from behind thinking, well, I'm not going to identify him. At the last moment, he turned round.
Oh, right.
So his face is out.
Did he see you taking a picture of him?
No, not really.
Did he not think he was some kind of weird stalker character?
No. But, no, I wouldn't want to identify the guy.
How about rucksacks? You could do rucksacks. 2 Mike's rucksacks.
Well, I don't think so. I'm not a great rucksack fan.
But you've obviously given this quite a bit of thought.
Well,
you want to do a clothing range and you want to sell food. You think you're busy enough?
No. All I'm thinking is, I mean, for instance, Marks and Spencer's, the original penny stall that Marks and Spencer started with in Leeds Marketplace.
Is that where they started?
Yeah.
Right.
It's still going.
Well, they're shutting about 600 shops, aren't they?
No, they're shutting about 70, I think.
Is it?
I read. I read 70.
And they're turning an awful lot of them into just food stores.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and all that kind of stuff.
So you want to go up against M&S now?
No. You've just got to think big and all this kind of stuff. And remember as well, internet shopping's the thing we all think for the future, don't we?
You don't buy hot cross buns on the internet.
Why not?
Why would you?
Well, I don't know. I mean,
who's going to deliver them?
Well, we get around all that. That's not a problem. That's something you would have to look at. I agree.
This is your plan?
Well,
I mean, you haven't managed to get the DVD thing right.
I'm just thinking aloud.
Right.
Just thinking aloud.
What price would you? How would you price them? Would you undercut the big supermarket chains?
I don't know what they cost in supermarket chains. Four hot cross buns. Four 2 Mike's hot cross buns. Yeah. £1.25.
That sounds like a lot of money to me.
Is it?
Yeah.
All right,
I don't think they're that expensive.
All right, 4
Does that
2 Mike's
postage and packing.
Hang on, 4 2 Mike's hot cross buns, 75p.
75p sounds
75p,
about right.
yeah.
I don't think you can make any money doing that, though.
Well, you know...
How many hot cross buns have you worked out we'd have to sell to make any money?
Well, I don't know. I don't know what the profit margin
I
of
don't
a
know
hot
what's
cross
going
bun
on
is.
with you.
Huh?
I don't know what's going on with you.
Nothing's going on with me. I just, I mean, you can lie in your pit all day. You can go and smoke your 80 cigarettes. You can, wallow around in.
Well, I've got children to look after. I'm going to go and see them this afternoon.
At least I'm, thinking about, how to move things on.
I'm going to go look after my children. I haven't seen them all week.
Yeah, well,
They've been away.
Yeah, well, I mean. They've been away, have they?
They were away this weekend.
Oh,
yeah.
I see.
They
Right.
went to
I
Wales.
was going to say, you managed to go out and get bladderated till about 3 o'clock this morning last night.
With one of my other children.
So,
It was her birthday.
Why weren't you with your children last night?
Well, because they weren't here. They were in Wales.
Yeah, I see.
But they're back now.
Yeah.
And I'm going to see them.
Oh, what they do in Wales? Did they visit the bog cleaner?
They didn't, actually, but thank you for asking. No, they went to visit their cousin, actually.
Oh, I see. Right,
He lives in a very nice part of Wales.
On digital radio and 1089 and 1053 AM.
The Two Mics on Talk Sport.
Life has hit me in many different forms.
Yeah, you're still bearing the scars.
I've swatted all those problems away. I am still, like a galleon in full sail,